You've been told your mind lives somewhere behind your eyes, inside your brain perhaps, trapped behind the bones of your skull. But what if that's not true? What if your mind isn't in your head, or even in your body at all? What if what you call your awareness, your voice, your stream of thought, is not inside anything? Because when you truly look for it, where is your mind? Not the brain, not the grey matter, but the part of you that's watching right now, the part that knows it's listening, the part that drifts between dreams and decisions, effortlessly, but never visibly. You'll try to locate it. You'll point behind your face. But that's not where you are. It's just where you've been told to look. Tonight, we'll wander far outside the body, through perception, through illusion, through experiments and paradoxes. You may never feel inside yourself again. So get comfortable, close your eyes, but keep your awareness open, because we're about to find out. If your mind isn't inside your body, where is it? You close your eyes and notice something strange. You're still here, even with the world darkened, even with your body resting still. Something inside, or maybe around, you continues to observe, to notice, to exist. You're not touching anything, not moving, not speaking, but you remain undeniably aware. So, where is that awareness located? Most people will point to their head, behind the eyes, between the ears, somewhere tucked inside the brain. But when you pause, really pause, and try to find the awareness itself, you won't find a boundary. You won't find a container. You'll only find the sensation of noticing. It's not coming from your brain the way a light comes from a bulb. It feels more like a glow that has no source, an open field that watches from nowhere and everywhere. Try it. Ask yourself, where am I looking from? You'll feel it instantly, a kind of hovering vantage point. But if you try to zoom in on it, it slips away. It doesn't live in any one place. That sips the first crack in the illusion. Your awareness pretends to be located behind your face, because your senses are arranged that way. Your eyes face forward. Your ears are on either side of your head. Your mouth, your voice, your expressions, they all emerge from your face. So you assume that your thoughts, your consciousness, must be tucked behind it. But that sips not what sips happening. You're experiencing the world through a body, but you are not inside it. You are not peering out of a shell like a man in a machine. You are not trapped behind bone. Your awareness is not a little person in your skull pulling levers and watching screens. That sip's just a metaphor we sip been taught. And like all metaphors, it sips misleading. If you want to break it, try an experiment. Sit still, close your eyes, and forget what you look like. Forget your face. Forget the room. Forget the idea that you're a person. All that remains is experience. Floating sensations, sounds, breath. A kind of detached knowing. You are that knowing, not the one being known. This isn't philosophy. It's phenomenology, the study of what experience feels like. And the more carefully you examine awareness, the more it defies being located. It doesn't have a fixed shape. It isn't trapped in your head. In fact, some researchers have suggested that consciousness doesn't even emerge from the brain at all. They propose that the brain is like a receiver, not a generator. That consciousness is something fundamental, like light or gravity, and the brain merely tunes into it, like a radio picking up a broadcast. If that's true, then awareness isn't in the body. The body is just the antenna. But let's stay with your direct experience for now. When you watch your thoughts arise, where do they come from? You don't make them. They appear. When you hear your inner voice, who's speaking it? You don't plan your sentences. They unfold. When you try to find the source of your attention, the one who's noticing all this, where is it? You shall find only emptiness. And yet, you still here. That's the paradox. Your awareness is undeniably real, but it can't be touched, seen, or located. It isn't in your foot. It isn't in your hand. But is it in your head? Or is that just where the eyes are? Consider how mirrors work. When you look into one, you see yourself, but you are not in the mirror. The mirror is just bouncing light back at you. In the same way, your senses bounce information back toward what you think is a central point. But that central point, the eye, has no coordinates. You can look and never find it. Neuroscientist Anil Seth calls consciousness a controlled hallucination, a set of predictions, a constructed experience that feels solid, but is always being guessed. Your brain isn't showing you reality, it's simulating it. including your sense of self, including your sense of being inside a body. But again, that SIP's just a simulation. When you dream, your body is paralyzed in bed, and yet your mind travels. You might be flying, swimming, falling, watching. You might become someone else. In dreams, your awareness isn't tied to the laws of flesh and gravity. It detaches from the body. It migrates into pure experience. Why do you assume it sets different now? In both states, dream and wakefulness, your awareness exists without a clear source. You never find it, you just are it. Which leads us to something strange. If your awareness can't be located, and your thoughts appear without your control, and your sense of self is constructed, then who exactly is experiencing your life? The answer may be that no one is. That awareness is not a person, not a thing, not even yours. It's just awareness. And it's everywhere, not trapped in skin, not bound by neurons, just present, watching. So now, take a moment. Gently, try to feel the edges of your awareness, not your body, not your thoughts, but the field of awareness itself. Is it in your skull, or does it feel like it's behind you, above you, all around? Most people report something strange. They feel like they're slightly behind or above their body, not in it, like a quiet observer hovering just out of reach. It's been called many things: soul, self, Atman, observer, ghost, spirit, consciousness, but all of those are just names. The truth is much simpler, and far more mysterious. Awareness is present, but it has no home. And now that you've noticed this, you can't unnotice it. The illusion that your mind lives in your body will flicker. The longer you stay with this question, the more it will dissolve, and what remains? Only awareness. Still, wordless, without borders. That SIP's the beginning of the journey. Next, we'll explore what happens when your awareness starts looking at the body from the outside. Because if you aren't sit inside yourself, then who's looking back when you stare in the mirror? Have you ever watched yourself from the outside? Not in a dream, not in a mirror, but in real life, in a moment where suddenly you didn't feel inside yourself at all, like you were watching a stranger's body do the talking, the laughing, the walking. You were there, but not in there. You were outside, looking in. This sensation is far more common than we admit. It has names in psychology: dissociation, depersonalization, but those terms attempt to pin down what might be a deeper truth, that your sense of being in a body is not a given. It's a story, and like any story, it can glitch. You walk into a room, you smile, say hello, but something's off. You feel like a puppet with strings pulled from somewhere just above. The mouth moves, the eyes blink, the hands wave, yet you don't feel like the one controlling it. You're observing it all unfold, just a few inches behind. And in that instant, you wonder, if I'm out here, who's in there? This isn't just poetic. There are experiments that prove it. In 2007, a team led by Henrik Ehrson used virtual reality goggles to shift people's perception of their own bodies. Participants wore a headset that showed them a live feed of their back, captured from a camera behind them. When a researcher tapped their chest in sync with a visual of their back being tapped, participants began to feel as if their awareness was behind their bodies, hovering in the space where the camera was. They no longer felt in their own skin. They felt outside it. All it took was the right sensory alignment, visual and tactile, and the illusion of bodily location was overwritten. Suddenly, you were the camera, the field, the watcher, not the flesh. Other experiments with the rubber hand illusion show similar effects. When a fake hand is stroked in sync with the hidden real one, the brain quickly adopts the rubber hand as its own. The mind says, yes, that's me now, but is it? If the brain can be tricked into thinking a plastic hand is part of the self, or that the self is floating behind the body, then what does that say about where you actually are? It says the story of I am here, inside this body is not hardwired. It's guessed, and it can be rewritten at any moment. But what if it's always been a guess? What if the sense of being in here is just the brain's best prediction, one it started telling long ago, because it had to organize a flood of sensory data into something that made sense? You see your hands move, you feel the movement, and your mind says, I must be in there somewhere. But this is not proof of presence. It's proof of coherence. You are not in the body. The body is in awareness. Think of a movie theater. The screen shows a body. It moves, speaks, acts. But the screen isn't aware. The awareness is in the seat, watching, detached. The film never knows it's being watched, but the watcher, you knows something's happening, even if you can't touch it. Now imagine this. What if the movie theater is your life? What if the screen is the sensory stream called your body? What if you, the awareness, are not on the screen, but seated just behind it, silently observing? That would mean your body has always been in front of you, that you've been outside, looking in, all along. Of course, this isn't how you're taught to think of yourself. Language is part of the trap. We say, I have a body, but also, I am a body. We say, my hand, but also, I touched it. These contradictions blur the line between possessor and possession. Are you in your hand, or is your hand a tool you use? When a tool breaks, say you burn your finger, you don't say I'm broken, you say my finger hurts. As if it's separate from you, as if there's a gap between the awareness of pain and the location of the pain. And maybe there is. Maybe awareness is always one step removed from the body, just close enough to control it, but never truly embedded inside, like a puppeteer who knows the strings well, but never confuses them for himself. In ancient philosophies, this idea wasn't strange. Yogic and Vedantic teachings often describe the self as a witness, an unchanging observer that stands apart from the mind, body, and senses. Buddhism speaks of awareness as not self, not the body, not the thoughts, not the personality, something prior. Modern science hints at the same mystery. Antonio Damasio, a neuroscientist, distinguishes between the proto-self biological, the core self, moment-to-moment awareness, and the autobiographical self, your story. None of them can explain who is doing the observing. That observer has no clear location, and yet it never leaves. Even when your thoughts vanish, when your emotions fade, when your body falls asleep, awareness remains. Silent, waiting, watching, but not from within muscle or bone. So where is it? You return again to the strange truth. You can't find yourself in the body, but you can watch the body, feel the body, use the body, which suggests that whatever you are, is outside. Looking in, this shift is subtle, but once you glimpse it, it changes everything. You no longer identify as the hand, the face, the chest. You no longer shrink into the skull like a ghost inside a machine. You begin to relax into something wider, softer, borderless. You stop trying to be the body, and you start noticing what it feels like to watch the body move, breathe, exist, like watching waves on the ocean, knowing you are not the water. This doesn't mean your body isn't real. It means it's not you. It's something you've worn, something you've used, something you've been looking into, like a window, but not something you've ever truly been inside. You've always been outside, looking in. And now, you can go back. Because once you've noticed the watcher, you realize it was never where you thought. And your journey has only just begun. There's a strange thing that happens when you try to find your center. Not your emotional center, not your balance or your gut, but your experiential center. The exact point from which you are witnessing the world, the place where the I supposedly sits, where you imagine the mind lives, where you believe you are. Everyone assumes this center is behind the eyes, somewhere in the brain, nestled in gray matter, hidden in the folds of the prefrontal cortex. But when you go looking, really looking, something disturbing happens. You don't find anything. There is no center. You might try to sense it. You focus behind your forehead. You try to grasp the me that seems to be doing the looking. And for a moment it feels like you're close, like you're brushing up against something just out of reach. But it dissolves as soon as you focus on it. The watcher retreats into a fog. You end up chasing your own attention in circles. What you find instead is emptiness. And that emptiness is not a void of meaning. It's a doorway. Let's step through it. When you look at your body in a mirror, it appears whole, solid. There's a shape, a face, an expression. But when you close your eyes and explore from within, you find nothing like that. The body disappears. You don't find your face. You don't find a head. You don't find an eye that exists as a location. You find space, sensation, movement, thoughts, but no center. And this isn't just metaphysical speculation. Neuroscience supports the illusion. There is no single spot in the brain where consciousness resides. No throne, no control tower. What we find instead is a network, a distributed system of signals, memories, feedback loops, and predictive processing. Your sense of self is stitched together from fragments, sensory input, memory patterns, language loops, and narrative framing, like a movie projector with no film in it. We believe we're sitting in the director's chair of the mind, calling the shots, but when we search for the director, we only find the stage. And yet, something is still watching. The philosopher David Hume, nearly 300 years ago, tried to locate the self through introspection. He found only fleeting impressions, thoughts, feelings, perceptions, but no self, no observer. I never can catch myself at any time without a perception, he wrote. I never can observe anything but the perception. That's the puzzle. There's an awareness of experience, but no one you can point to who's having it. It's like a camera with no photographer, a mirror with no reflection, a center that vanishes the moment you try to stand in it. Some call this the centerless self, the idea that what we think of as the mind is not a fixed point, but an activity, a process, not a thing, but a movement. Awareness doesn't come from a center, it creates the illusion of one. And that illusion is stitched together with precision. Your body is mapped in the brain with a topographical layout called the somatosensory homunculus, but there's no you sitting in the control room looking at that map. The map itself just runs. Data flows. Interpretation happens. Predictions fire. And somewhere in the midst of that dance, a feeling emerges. I am here. But here is an echo. A trick of time and attention. You may think, if there's no center, how do I feel like I have one? Because the system keeps referring to itself. Thoughts reference other thoughts. Memories pull in identity. Language loops create a narrator. The brain becomes a hall of mirrors. And somewhere in that recursive loop, a stable seeming me appears. But try to find it, and it collapses. This realization isn't just philosophical, it's deeply practical, because once you see that the center is empty, you stop gripping so tightly, you stop building walls around an imaginary core, you begin to soften, you begin to dissolve, not in a way that makes you less real, but in a way that makes you more spacious, more free, and oddly enough, more present. Think about a storm. It rages with wind, noise, chaos. But at its heart, there's the I, still, quiet, unmoving. And yet, the I isn't doing anything. It's just there, not even a thing, really. More like a pause, a gap, a silent awareness amidst the motion. Your awareness is like that. It doesn't push, it doesn't pull, it doesn't reside anywhere, but it watches, patiently, without needing a home. The Buddhists call it anatta, no self, not a nihilistic emptiness, but a recognition that what you thought was the self is just clouds, always changing, always moving. The sky behind them, that's awareness, and it doesn't belong to anyone. It just is. Try something now. Sit quietly. Let your attention settle. Ask yourself, who is aware right now? Don't answer it. Just notice the silence that follows, the space that opens, the strange, expansive stillness that emerges. That's the space where your imagined center once stood. That's the empty center. And it sits not scary. It sits relief. You don't have to hold the world together. You don't have to anchor your identity in something fixed. You don't have to live as a character inside a container. You are not inside the body. The body is inside experience. And the experience is floating in something much larger, something without a center, without a boundary, without a shape. Call it awareness. Call it presence. Call it the vast, quiet noticing that underlies all things. But don't try to capture it. Just rest in it. And now that you've seen the center disappear, the next question arises. If there's no you in the middle, then what is the body for? Let's step closer. Let's feel what it means to wear a body you were never truly inside. You've always been taught that your skin is where you end. The outermost edge. The final border. The living wall that separates you from the world. Inside it, you. Outside it, not you. Everything from your eyelashes to your fingerprints falls within this perimeter. That's the common belief, that your skin defines the territory of the self. But have you ever questioned that boundary? Because the truth is, your skin doesn't feel like a wall. It feels like a membrane, a filter. And sometimes, especially when your attention softens, it stops feeling like an edge at all. Instead, it feels like the place where experience begins to blur, the place where the inside starts to dissolve into the outside. Touch your arm, slowly, with your own fingers. Who's touching whom? You're both the toucher and the touched, both sender and receiver. In that moment, the duality collapses. You are one sensation split across two roles. There is no boundary, there is only the field of touch, and the awareness of it. So where does you begin? If awareness is watching this moment unfold, it doesn't stop at the surface of your skin. It observes both sides of the touch. It notices both hands at once. It doesn't live in either one. It is surrounding them, merging them. The skin, once believed to be the edge of the self, becomes a kind of illusion, a line drawn on water, a convenient marker used by the mind to organize experience, but not the truth. And science has begun to reveal how permeable this boundary really is. Let's look at how your brain maps the body. You have something called a body schema, an internal representation of your body's size, position, and shape. But this map is flexible. It can be tricked, extended, even distorted. In one study, researchers placed a fake rubber hand in front of a participant and stroked it in sync with their hidden real hand. After a few minutes, the brain adopted the rubber hand as part of the body. The person would flinch when it was threatened. They'd report feeling the touch in the fake hand. The skin's boundary had expanded. The body map had shifted outward. If your sense of self can include a rubber hand, where does it end? This experiment shows that your skin is not the limit of you. It's a suggestion, a reference point. But your awareness doesn't obey it. It spills over, it adapts, it absorbs. Now, let's go deeper. Have you ever walked into a warm breeze and felt like you were being touched everywhere at once? Have you ever floated in water, eyes closed, and lost track of where your body ended and the environment began? That SIP's awareness without borders. It doesn't stop at the skin. It extends, it blends, it fuses. Some traditions have known this for centuries. In yogic philosophy, the body is said to be layered: the physical body, the energy body, the mental body, the wisdom body, and the bliss body. The skin, in this view, is not a boundary. It's just the outermost ripple in a field of experience that spreads far beyond the flesh. In meditation, people often report a sensation of melting or expanding. They can no longer tell where their legs are, where their head is, where their skin begins or ends. Awareness becomes unmoored from form. This isn't dissociation. It's a deep return, a remembrance of something more primal. That you are not your shape. You are not your outline. You are not the skin that wraps the body. You are the space in which all sensation happens, and sensation doesn't need a container. Think of a violin. When it's played, the sound fills the room, but the sound isn't in the violin. The violin is the instrument. The vibration is the effect. Your body is like that, an instrument vibrating with sensation. But the experience of those vibrations, the awareness of them, has no fixed origin. It echoes into space. Now ask yourself, does the sound belong to the violin, or does it belong to the room? In the same way, does your awareness belong to the body, or does the body belong to awareness? When you shift perspective like this, your skin stops being a wall. It becomes more like a lens, something that lets experience in and out, not to contain, but to translate, not to limit, but to channel. You aren't trapped inside it. You are perceiving through it. Even language begins to reflect this. We say, I feel touched by that, but the touch may be emotional, invisible. Still, we locate the sensation on the skin, as if awareness is always just grazing the surface, floating just above it, hovering in the space between matter and meaning. And that space? That SIP's where you are. Try this now. Close your eyes. Feel the air brushing your skin. Feel the pull of gravity. Feel the weight of your body on the chair or bed, then zoom out. Imagine you are not in the body, but wrapped gently around it, like a mist, like a cloud, like a presence. That SIP's closer to how awareness really functions. Not from inside a sealed box, but from around experience, watching it unfold, softly, without center, without edge. This is why many people who've had out-of-body experiences describe the sensation of being behind or above themselves, not trapped inside skin, but orbiting it, observing it, still connected, but no longer convinced that the skin was ever a real border. Even in waking life, you can touch this state. When you fall into deep focus, when you lose track of your limbs, when your thoughts slow and your body becomes quiet. In those moments, The illusion of being inside the body begins to dissolve, and what's left? Only awareness. Silent, spacious, skinless. So now ask again, is your skin where you end, or is it where you begin watching? Because the body was never the prison. It was the veil. And now that you lifted it, it's time to ask, if you stir not defined by the skin, then what does it mean to be a body at all? You've seen the skin blur. You've watched the edges of the body begin to fade. Now, let's go deeper. Beneath the surface, past the muscle, into the labyrinth of organs, the lungs, the liver, the heart, the brain. This is where most people believe the real you resides. The internal chamber of identity. But what if it sits not? What if your organs are not who you are, but merely what keeps the costume running? What if you could remove them, replace them, rewire them, and you would still remain? Let's start with something simple. Your heartbeat. Most people associate it with life, with being. You can feel it in your chest, a steady rhythm, an anchor, but you don't control it. It beats on its own. You can't stop it. You can't start it. You can't start it. You can't slow it without tricks. You're aware of it, but you are not it. Now try your lungs. They breathe for you. Even when you're asleep. Even when you forget. In fact, they'll keep working until the very last moment, whether you like it or not. Are you your lungs? Or are you simply observing their work? Think of the liver, the pancreas, the kidneys. All these organs are essential. And yet, most people have no real sense of them. You don't feel your pancreas. You don't walk around thinking about your spleen. They are part of your body, but they're invisible to your awareness until something goes wrong. And even then, you are not inside them. You just experience their dysfunction. You are not the organs. You are the one noticing them. And even the most sacred one, the brain, is not exempt. Because yes, the brain is where neurons fire, where signals race. It is the conductor of the body's orchestra. But is it the self? If you remove half a liver, you're still you. If your heart is replaced, you're still you. But even with severe brain damage, something remains. There are people who've had massive portions of their brains removed due to trauma or seizures, and they continue to live, to perceive, to form memories, not as before, but not as no one. One of the most startling cases involved a man with hydrocephalus, a condition where fluid fills the brain cavity. Scans revealed that his skull was almost entirely filled with fluid, with barely a sliver of brain tissue remaining, and yet he was fully conscious, employed, functional, self-aware. How can someone be themselves without most of the organ we claim houses the mind? Because maybe the mind isn't sit in the organ. Maybe it sits something that passes through. Just as light can pass through glass, or electricity through wire. What if the brain is not the origin of consciousness, but the receiver? This idea isn't fringe. It's called the filter theory of consciousness. Think of the brain as a radio tuner, not generating the music, but selecting the frequency. If you damage the tuner, the music gets fuzzy, but the station still exists. The awareness still exists. Even near-death experiences suggest this. People report floating above their bodies during clinical death. No heartbeat, no oxygen to the brain. And yet, vivid perception, memories, feelings, sometimes even observations that are later verified, despite the body being entirely shut down. This doesn't prove anything, but it opens a question. If your organs can shut off, and you still feel like you, then what part of you was doing the feeling? Something beyond organs. Even identity doesn't live in them. You might think your voice is you, or your laugh, or your walk. But all of these can change. A stroke can alter speech. An accident can transform gait. Hormonal shifts can change personality. And yet, you still feel like you. What does that tell us? That the self is not found in function, not in mechanics, not in blood, or bile, or breath. Those are part of your vehicle, but not your vantage point. Let sense turn inward again. Feel your body from the inside, not visually, but as sensation. Can you feel your liver, your gallbladder, your spinal cord? You might feel heat, pressure, tingling, or vibration, but none of them say you. They are experiences occurring to you, not as you. Even the experience of thinking doesn't happen in the brain. In a way you can see, you think, and the thought appears. You didn't choose it. It arrived, and you become aware of it. like a cloud drifting through the sky. So what sits the sky? That sky is awareness. Unbound, undivided, not sewn to any organ, not trapped in flesh, not caged in grey matter, just there, watching, always watching. Let's try something else. Imagine you're in a coma. For 10 years, no movement, no speech, no contact. Then one day, you wake up, you open your eyes, and you're back. Where were you? Not in your hands, not in your lungs, not in your stomach. Those kept running, sure. But you, the awareness, was somewhere else. Unreachable. Silent. But not gone. Just waiting. Now try flipping the idea entirely. What if someone took your brain and placed it into another body? Would you feel like you moved? Would you still be you? Now flip it again. What if they kept your body, but replaced the brain with someone else's? Would your friends still recognize you? Would your voice, your eyes, your posture still feel the same? Probably not. But here's the twist. In both cases, the real you, the awareness, the witness, is not attached to either. It observes, it adapts, it blends, it watches even as the organs change. Because the organs are part of the costume, part of the stage, useful, yes. Necessary, yes. But not fundamental. You are beyond the organs. You are what knows they exist. And so tonight, as you lie still, remember the body breathes, the heart beats, the brain fires, but you are not those processes. You are what watches them come and go. Silent, rootless, organless. A self without parts. So the question deepens. If you said not your face, your skin, or your organs, then why do you still feel like someone? Let's look closer at the illusions of identity and meet the first ghost living inside your mind. Look out at the room around you right now. The walls, the floor, the screen in front of you. All of it seems to exist out there, separate from you. But pause for a moment and ask a question. Most people never do. Where is this image actually appearing? It feels like it's out there, but the truth is, it's not. Everything you see, every color, every shadow, every shape, is happening inside the field of awareness. It's not projected outward, it's appearing inward. And that means something profound. The world you see isn't out there at all. It's happening nowhere, a private hallucination that awareness is watching. This is not philosophy. It's neuroscience. Your eyes don't see. They collect light, vibrations, wavelengths, meaningless data. Your brain doesn't see either. It receives electrical signals, organizes them, and constructs a model. What you see is a 3D reconstruction, an internal simulation of reality that your awareness interprets as being outside. But if vision is a model in here, then who is the one looking at the model? The answer is slippery, because the you that looks at the world is the same you that looks at dreams, and dreams feel real until you wake. Your awareness accepts the image as reality, because it's wired to. It can't tell the difference between what's out there and what's projected within. That's why phantom vision experiments are so unsettling. Consider Charles Bonnet syndrome. It affects people who've lost their sight, even without functional eyes. They see vivid, detailed hallucinations, faces, landscapes, animals, painted by the brain onto the canvas of awareness. Their eyes are gone. Their optic nerves silent. Yet vision continues. How? Because sight was never truly in the eyes. It was always in awareness. Even stranger, blind people, who have never seen sometimes report visual-like experiences in dreams, despite their brains never receiving light. This reveals something uncomfortable. What you call seeing is not a sensory input. It's an experience awareness creates and then labels as vision. And once you realize that, the illusion of eyes as windows collapses. You are not looking out. You are watching in. This is where the ghost appears. You see a tree, but you're not seeing a tree. You're seeing a representation of a tree created by the brain, and yet the experience feels real. More importantly, you feel like the one looking at it. You feel like an observer, standing behind the eyes, peering outward. But when you search for that observer, when you try to find the ghost behind the gaze, it disappears. There is no observer. There is only observing. No one is looking out of your eyes. There is only the act of looking. This realization is ancient. In Zen Buddhism, students are often given a simple but devastating koan, who is seeing. They sit for years trying to answer. At first, they point inward. I am. But then the question deepens. Where is this I? Can it be seen? And eventually, the mind collapses under the weight of the paradox. The illusion of a seer dissolves, leaving only pure seeing. And that's the ghost. A phantom sense of self haunting your perception. It's not just philosophical traditions that hint at this. Experiments in cognitive science show how deeply this illusion is wired. The out-of-body camera studies by Olaf Blanke, for instance, reveal that simply shifting visual feedback can trick the brain into believing the vantage point of awareness has moved outside the skull. If the self can be displaced by a headset, how real is the idea that it's inside the eyes? Then there's the rubber eye illusion, a lesser-known variant of the rubber hand experiment. By synchronizing tactile feedback with a fake eye, participants begin to feel like they're seeing from the prosthetic. The ghost relocates, the observer shifts, awareness proves to be untethered to any single location. But perhaps the most haunting evidence comes from dreams. In dreams, your eyes see with no light. They watch, without organs. They observe landscapes, faces, entire worlds that do not exist. And yet, the act of seeing feels identical to waking life. If that's possible without physical eyes, why assume that now is any different? Why assume that the awareness watching these words is housed behind your retina? Here's the deeper truth. What you call vision is not a sense. It's a story. It's a story your brain tells awareness about reality, and awareness believes it, not because it's accurate, but because it's immersive. The real question isn't what you're seeing. It's where seeing is happening. Try a simple experiment. Gaze softly at the space around you. Then ask yourself, where is this image appearing? Not in front of you, not behind your eyes, not in your brain. The most honest answer you'll find is nowhere. It's just appearing, spontaneously, effortlessly, without a source. And once you see that, a deeper realization blooms. Your awareness is not inside the body looking out. The body is a construct, appearing inside awareness. Just like the tree, just like the room, just like the world. You are not the one looking through the eyes. The eyes, the images, the sensations, all of them are unfolding in you. And this means something extraordinary. You are never in your body. Your body is in you. The ghost in vision isn't hiding in the skull. It's the sense of me that sneaks into perception, pretending to be the one watching. But when you search for it, it fades into the background, like a shadow that vanishes when you turn on the light. And what remains is simple, silent, infinite. Just seeing, without a seer. Just awareness, without a watcher. Just experience, without a self. The ghost is gone, and with it, another illusion dissolves. But vision is only one doorway. To understand the depth of this mystery, we must now explore something even more unsettling. The mind's ability to create sensations that don't exist, and still believe they're real. Imagine waking up tomorrow without one of your arms. It's been surgically removed. The physical limb is gone, vanished. And yet, when you reach out for a glass of water, you still feel it move. Your fingers still curl. Your non-existent wrist still itches. It's as if the limb never left. This isn't rare. It happens to over 80% of amputees. And it reveals something deeply unsettling. Your body isn't where you think it is. This phenomenon is called a phantom limb. A vivid, persistent sensation of a body part that no longer exists. It can ache, clench, burn, or feel as real as the rest of your body. Some people even report trying to scratch a phantom itch or move a phantom joint. The limb is gone, but the experience of it remains. And that's the first clue. The body you feel is not the body you have. What this tells us is that your sense of embodiment, the experience of being in a physical body, is not anchored to physical reality. It's constructed. It's simulated. Your awareness is not reading information from the body like a passive receiver. It's generating a model of the body in real time. And once that model is built, it doesn't need the physical body to maintain it. This isn't just a glitch in the nervous system. It's a window into how deeply your experience is fabricated. Neuroscientists have studied phantom limbs for decades. One of the most revealing experiments comes from Vilyanur Ramachandran. He treated patients who felt their phantom hand was painfully clenched by placing a mirror next to their intact hand. The mirror reflected the real hand's movements, creating the illusion that the phantom was moving too. Almost instantly, many patients reported relief. The pain vanished. What happened? The visual feedback rewrote the body model. The mind updated its map, even though the physical body hadn't changed. The phantom wasn't healed because it never existed in the first place. It was an idea, a deeply convincing one, living in awareness. This proves something profound. If the brain can maintain the experience of a limb without the limb, then the experience of embodiment doesn't rely on physical presence. It relies on awareness believing its own story. And if that's true, what else in your body might be a story? Consider phantom organs. Patients who've had internal organs removed sometimes report sensations from them long after surgery. A missing appendix hurts. A non-existent uterus cramps. A removed toothaches. The physical structure is gone, but the awareness of it lingers. The same thing happens in reverse. People born without certain limbs sometimes report phantom sensations of limbs they never had. Their minds generate an experience of wholeness, based on an idea of what a body should be. Awareness isn't reporting reality, it's constructing it. This is why amputees sometimes say their phantom limbs feel more real than their actual ones. They're not lying. The mind's internal model is so persuasive that it can override physical evidence. This is the same reason you can feel your phone vibrating when it's not in your pocket. The sensation is an expectation, not a fact. And this leads us to a disturbing realization. If your sense of having a hand can exist without a hand, then what about the rest of your body? Are you sure you stitch is sitting in it? Or are you just imagining that you are? In many ways you are living inside a phantom body, a model of yourself, assembled by the brain, updated second by second. It includes your limbs, your organs, your posture, your position in space. But this body is not you. It's not even inside you, it's inside awareness. The line between real and imagined starts to blur. In fact, this body model extends far beyond your skin. Have you ever flinched when someone swung a bat near your head, even if it didn't hit you, or felt taller when wearing a large hat, or longer when holding a stick? Your awareness incorporates external objects into its body schema. If they behave like extensions of you, tools become limbs, spaces become part of you, your self expands and contracts like a shadow. And here's where things get even stranger. You don't control these models. They appear before you choose them. They change without your permission. They linger even when they no longer make sense. The phantom limb continues to ache even after decades. The phantom uterus still cramps, despite its absence. Awareness refuses to let go of the story. This tells us something essential. The body you believe you inhabit is not a physical fact. It's a narrative, one so deeply ingrained that you mistake it for truth. Your awareness has been dressing itself in this narrative since birth, but that doesn't mean it's real. It's as if you're an actor who's forgotten they're wearing a costume. You identify with the fabric, you believe you are the costume, but the costume can be changed, replaced, or even removed entirely, and you, the awareness, remain. This is not speculation, it's lived evidence. People with phantom limbs live every day as proof that the body is not what it seems, and their experience holds a mirror up to the rest of us, showing us that even those of us with complete bodies are still living inside projections. We too are phantoms. The hand you're looking at right now is just as much a mental construct as the phantom hand that isn't there. The difference is only that this one happens to match physical data, but the awareness perceiving both, that hasn't changed. That was never in the hand to begin with. So, if your mind can generate a limb that isn't there, if it can feel a body part that never existed, if it can expand yourself to include tools, spaces and illusions, then where, exactly, does you begin and end? Maybe the truth is that there's no beginning and no end. Maybe you are the space in which the body appears. Maybe the body is the phantom, and you are the one watching it come and go. And if that's the case, then what you've always believed about you is about to dissolve even further. Because if the body is an illusion, then the control you think you have over it might be too. Stand up, raise your right hand, wiggle your fingers. Simple, isn't it? You think, move, and the body obeys. At least, that's how it feels. That's the illusion that you are the one pulling the strings. That there's a you inside, issuing commands to a body that faithfully follows. But stop for a second, and examine the process closely. Did you actually choose to raise your hand? Or did the thought, I will raise my hand, simply appear, and the body followed? Did you consciously instruct each muscle fiber? Did you orchestrate the electric pulses shooting through your motor cortex? Or did it all just happen, the way a leaf falls or the tide comes in? The unsettling truth is that most of what your body does is not commanded by you. It's automated, pre-programmed, orchestrated by systems that never ask for your permission. Your heart beats. Your lungs expand, your pupils dilate. Even when you decide to move, the neural activity that causes that movement begins before you are aware of deciding. This isn't speculation, it's a well-documented fact. In the 1980s, neuroscientist Benjamin Libet ran a now famous experiment. Participants were asked to flex their wrist whenever they felt like it, and report the exact moment they became aware of the intention to move. Libet also measured their brain activity. What he discovered shocked science. The brain showed a readiness potential 300 milliseconds before the participants felt the intention to move. In other words, the decision was made before they knew they'd made it. The you inside, the conscious decider, was a spectator, arriving after the fact. Subsequent experiments went even further. Using fMRI, researchers were able to predict a subject's decision 7 seconds before the subject became aware of it. 7 seconds before you thought you'd chosen, the choice had already been set in motion. What does this mean? It means the conscious self is not the puppeteer, it's the narrator. It takes credit for movements and decisions it did not initiate, like a voiceover added after the film is already shot. And once you see this, the body stops feeling like a tool in your hands and starts looking like a marionette, strings pulled by forces deeper than you. The feeling of control is one of the mind's most convincing tricks. It's necessary for survival. If you didn't believe you were steering the ship, you'd probably stop trying to. But the evidence shows that the ship is mostly steering itself. This isn't limited to simple actions. It extends to speech, creativity, even thought itself. How many times have you said something and thought, where did that come from? How many ideas have just popped into your mind? How often have you tried to stop thinking, only to watch thoughts keep arising anyway? You don't choose what thought comes next. You don't decide which memory will surface. You don't control when a heartbeat skips or a tear falls. It all just happens. And then awareness notices, labels, and claims it. This illusion of authorship is so strong that we rarely question it. But when we do, the scaffolding collapses. If your thoughts arise without your control, and your actions begin before your awareness, and your body regulates itself without permission, what's left for you to do? Maybe nothing. Maybe you were never in charge. Consider how a puppet show works. The puppet's arm lifts, its head nods, its wooden lips move. To an observer, it looks alive, but the puppet knows nothing of the story it tells. The script is written elsewhere. The strings are pulled from above. The movements are choreographed long before they reach the stage. Your body is no different. Genes, hormones, neural patterns, sensory inputs, memories, cultural conditioning, all of them pull at the strings. And somewhere above all that, the vast machinery of nature pushes everything forward. Chemical reactions, gravitational forces, evolutionary imperatives, they all guide your steps. And the I who thinks it's deciding, that's just the puppet narrating its own dance. But here's the paradox. Even though you're not in control, you still feel responsible, and perhaps that too is part of the show. The story needs a protagonist. Awareness needs a center of gravity to stabilize the illusion. So it invents one. I did this. I chose that. I'm the one pulling the strings. All the while the strings move whether you believe in them or not. This is not meant to be depressing. It's liberating. Because once you stop clinging to the illusion of control, you stop blaming yourself for the waves that crash and the winds that blow. You stop mistaking the puppet for the puppeteer. You stop carrying the unbearable weight of me. And something remarkable happens. Awareness expands. It no longer sees the body as mine. It sees it as part of a vast unfolding. Movements still happen. Choices still occur. Life still moves forward. But they're no longer yours. They're just happening. Like clouds forming. Like rivers flowing. Like planets spinning in silence. And in this realization, the body transforms from a prison into a performance. A dance that awareness watches, but does not choreograph. A story that writes itself moment by moment, without needing an author. So try it. Sit still. Watch your breath move in and out. Watch thoughts appear and vanish. Watch impulses rise and fade. Don't interfere. Don't claim them. Just watch. You'll see that everything is happening by itself. And you are the silent witness. The audience. The space in which the play unfolds. The body was never your puppet. And you were never its master. You were the empty stage all along. And once you see the strings, another illusion starts to unravel. The idea that your awareness is tied to this one body Because if the strings pull themselves, could they pull anybody? Could awareness arise anywhere? The next step is to follow the strings outward, to see how far awareness can reach beyond the flesh. Close your eyes and think of someone you love. Maybe they're thousands of miles away. Maybe you haven't spoken in months. And yet, in a single second, there they are, alive, vivid, fully present in your mind. Their voice, their laughter, the way they move. It's as if the miles between you vanish. Awareness has no trouble bridging the gap. This simple act, remembering, hints at a truth that's far stranger than it appears. Your mind is not bound by physical distance. It leaps across time zones and oceans with effortless precision. It summons people, places, and events from the farthest corners of the earth in an instant. It doesn't travel, it is already there. This is not just poetic language. It's how the mind truly behaves. While your body is bound by geography, awareness is not. It is not limited by coordinates or location. It does not obey the speed of light. It operates in a domain that physical rules cannot touch. Consider this, when you remember a scene from childhood. Where does that memory occur? Not in the past, not in the neurons. It unfolds here, in awareness. When you imagine yourself standing in Tokyo or Cairo or Mars, your body stays put, but your experience moves. It's as real to awareness as the room you're physically in. The philosopher Henri Bergson described consciousness as something that overflows the body. Like water poured into a cup, it might take the cup's shape for a while, but it's never confined to it. The cup is a convenience, not a cage. The same goes for the body. Awareness is not inside it. The body is simply the vessel it currently animates. And there's evidence that this isn't just metaphor. It shows up in experiments that seem to defy what we think we know about the limits of mind. One of the most famous is the Ganzfeld telepathy experiment, conducted repeatedly over decades. In these studies, a sender concentrates on an image or video in one room, while a receiver, isolated in another room, describes impressions that come to mind. Again and again, results show statistically significant correlations, higher than chance, between what the sender is focused on and what the receiver perceives. The data is controversial, but it raises a question mainstream science rarely asks: could awareness reach beyond the skull? Then there's the phenomenon of remote viewing, where individuals accurately describe distant places or objects without sensory input. The US government even funded research into it for over 20 years under the Stargate project. The results were mixed, but some participants produced details that were verified only after the fact, information they could not have known through normal means. Skeptics argue that these findings are flawed, but they result from coincidence or bias. But even if you discard them entirely, something subtler remains. Your awareness constantly projects itself beyond the body without needing proof. It imagines, remembers, anticipates, and constructs worlds that stretch far beyond the reach of your senses. And those worlds feel real. When you daydream, you don't feel here. You're walking down a beach, flying through a city, standing on a stage. Your heart might even race. Your breathing might change. Your body responds to the idea, as though it's happening. It doesn't distinguish between local and distant. Awareness paints reality wherever it wants. This is why you can cry over a story happening on another continent. Why you can fall in love with a face on a screen. Why you can mourn a person you've never met. Awareness is not contained. It is not a prisoner of proximity. Even science's most precise tools like quantum physics hint that separation might not be as real as we think. Quantum entanglement shows that two particles can affect each other instantaneously, no matter how far apart they are. Some philosophers and physicists have speculated that consciousness might operate in a similarly non-local way, not in the brain, but everywhere, with the brain simply focusing it like a lens. Even if that's speculative, the metaphor holds. The lens does not create the light, it directs it. The brain does not produce awareness, it channels it. This is why the mystics of every culture have said the same thing for millennia. The mind is not in the body is in the mind. The Upanishads say it plainly. As the spider spins the web from itself and withdraws it back, so does the self project the universe from itself and withdraw it. Awareness is not in the web, it is the web. When you think of a person you miss, and their presence floods your awareness, where are they in that moment? Are they over there, or are they here, as real as your own heartbeat? And if they're here in a place beyond space, then what else might awareness be capable of? It's possible that our fixation on physical boundaries, skin, organs, skulls, distances, is a mistake born of habit. We assume that because the body is local, the mind must be too. But the evidence of direct experience says otherwise. The mind is never local. It's global, cosmic, everywhere at once. And this isn't just a curiosity. It has profound implications. If awareness is not inside the body, then it cannot die when the body dies. If awareness can reach beyond space, then it might already exist beyond time. If awareness can travel anywhere, then you might be far more than the tiny point you think you are. So try this. Picture yourself standing somewhere far away, on a mountain peak, in a childhood bedroom, on a street you've never visited. Feel the air there, hear the sounds, see the light. Notice how real it feels, how effortless it is to be there. Your body never moved an inch, but awareness did. And it will again. And again. Across distance. Across memory. Across imagination. The body was never the cage, it was just the stage. The mind was never in the skull, it was already in the stars. And if it can travel outward so easily, what happens when it turns inward? What happens when it looks for itself and finds something entirely new? If your mind were truly inside your head, if it were a single contained entity located behind your eyes, then cutting the brain in half should destroy that unity. But here's the unsettling truth. It doesn't. It multiplies it. The eye that you think is indivisible turns out to be anything but. In the mid-20th century, neurosurgeons treating severe epilepsy performed a radical procedure known as corpus callosotomy, severing the bundle of nerve fibers connecting the brain's two hemispheres. The result? The seizures stopped. But something else happened too, something no one expected. The single self split in two. Patients began to display strange behaviors. One hand would button a shirt, while the other unbuttoned it. One hand would reach for a book, while the other shoved it away. In extreme cases, one hand would even slap the other. It was as if two wills were living in one body, each with its own agenda. But the most shocking evidence came from experiments by neuroscientists Roger Sperry and Michael Gazzaniga. They discovered that when information was presented to only one hemisphere, by flashing images to a single visual field, the two sides of the brain knew different things. The left hemisphere, typically associated with language, would speak confidently about what it had seen. The right hemisphere, unable to use words, would respond through gestures or drawings. When shown a picture of a snow scene to the right hemisphere and a chicken claw to the left, patients would point with one hand to a shovel, appropriate for snow, and with the other to a chicken, appropriate for the claw. When asked why they picked the shovel, the verbal hemisphere, unaware of the snow scene, would invent a story. Oh, the shovel is for cleaning out the chicken coop. In other words, half the brain made a decision, the other half didn't understand, and the conscious I invented an explanation on the fly. This reveals a deeply unsettling truth. The mind is not a singular voice living in your skull. It's a chorus, often out of sync, sometimes in conflict. What you call I is the fragile narrative that tries to stitch their competing stories together. The philosopher Thomas Metzinger once wrote, "The self is not a thing but a process." Nowhere is that more obvious than in split-brain research. The conscious self emerges not from a central control room, but from the coordination and miscoordination of countless subsystems. Awareness is not located anywhere, because it is not one thing. And yet, even in these cases, there is no sense of being two people. Patients still feel like a single self. They don't walk around thinking, I am two. The illusion of unity persists. Awareness keeps weaving its story, no matter how fragmented the machinery becomes. This suggests something radical. The experience of being one mind inside one body is not a biological fact. It's a cognitive fiction, a convenient hallucination stitched together moment by moment. It's not that the brain houses awareness. It constructs the illusion of unity within awareness, and when that illusion breaks, awareness continues anyway. But split-brain research goes even deeper. It reveals that consciousness itself can exist without communication. Even when the hemispheres are cut off from each other, both sides still perceive, think, and react. Awareness does not need a central headquarters. It is distributed, self-sufficient, and self-organizing. It exists through the system, not inside it. And if consciousness can split and continue functioning in two separate spheres within one skull, then why should we assume it can't exist outside the skull entirely? Why should we assume it's trapped behind bone? The illusion of the container self falls apart under this evidence. The brain is not a room where a person sits. It's more like a field of weather, cloud systems forming, merging, dissipating. There's no fixed center, no pilot in the cockpit, just endless patterns arising and fading. And yet, we cling to the story of a single self. We cling to it because it feels safe, because without it, the ground beneath us dissolves. If I is not a single thing, if I can split, then what am I? You are not the speaker in your head. You are not the story that knits the halves together. You are the space in which both stories appear. You are the awareness that watches them argue, invent, contradict, and collaborate. You are the field in which the illusion of unity unfolds. Consider a mirror shattered into two pieces. Each fragment still reflects. Each fragment still captures light. The reflection doesn't stop existing just because the glass is divided. In the same way, awareness continues to reflect experience, even if the structure generating the illusion of oneself is split apart. And here's where the paradox deepens. If the mind can split into two and still function, then the boundaries of awareness must be far looser than we think. They are not tied to a single organ or a single structure. They are not limited by lines of connection. They can spread, divide, overlap, and still remain awareness. This means the I you feel right now is not the ultimate truth. It's one version of awareness's story, one that happens to feel coherent, but it's not the only one possible. And once you understand that, the question becomes not where is my mind, but why does it ever feel like it's only here? The split-brain patient teaches us that you can exist in multiple places at once, that the you watching the world is not tied to the left hemisphere or the right, that you are not a singular voice but the silent field beneath all voices. The skull, like the skin, like the organs, was never the limit. It was just another illusion of containment. Awareness is not in the head, it is the canvas on which the head appears. And now, the story grows even stranger, because if consciousness can split into two and still operate, what happens when it observes itself observing? What happens when awareness turns its gaze inward and finds that the watcher is also being watched? There's a peculiar moment that occurs when you turn awareness back on itself. You spend your whole life looking outward, at faces, landscapes, screens, mirrors, but the instant you ask, what is it that's looking, the direction reverses. Awareness begins to look for itself, and what it finds is something deeply unsettling. There's nothing there. No shape, no color, no weight, no size. The thing that's watching isn't a thing at all. It's transparent, so transparent, in fact, that it's almost impossible to notice. And yet, it is the most intimate part of your experience. The watcher is the one constant, the silent backdrop behind every thought, sensation, and moment of your life. But because it has no qualities of its own, you never notice it. It's like the space in a room, so ordinary, so invisible, that you overlook it while focusing on the objects inside. And yet, without that space, nothing else could exist. Try a small experiment right now. Instead of focusing on what you're reading, turn attention back on the reader. Don't analyze, don't think, just try to feel the presence that's aware of these words. What does it look like? Where is it located? Does it sit behind your eyes, above your head, inside your chest, or does it simply have no location at all? Most people discover that it's impossible to pin down. You can't see the watcher because it isn't made of the same stuff as what it sees. It's not physical, not spatial. It's more like a field, everywhere and nowhere at once. It's not inside the body. If anything, the body is appearing inside it. This idea might sound abstract, but it's central to many philosophical and spiritual traditions. The Upanishads describe the self as the witness of all, yet itself unseen. In Zen Buddhism, the same concept is called kensho, the direct recognition of awareness witnessing itself. Modern neuroscience, too, hints at this paradox. The default mode network, often associated with the self, lights up when we think about who we are, but that network shuts down during deep meditation, when the sense of self dissolves, and yet awareness remains. It's as if the self were a costume worn by something much quieter. Even language betrays this truth. We say, I am aware, but what we really mean is awareness is aware. There's no I doing the awareness. It simply is. Thoughts come and go, but awareness doesn't. Sensations rise and fall, but awareness remains. It watches joy and sorrow, hunger and boredom, life and death, and it never changes. It has no beginning or end. And yet, because it has no features, we mistake it for nothing. We look right through it, the way we look through glass without noticing it's there. But imagine a window with no glass, only a hole. Suddenly the difference becomes obvious. The same is true of awareness. You never see it directly, but without it, nothing else could appear. This leads to a profound realization. If awareness is the silent backdrop to everything, then it cannot be inside anything. It's not contained within the skull or the brain. It's not inside thoughts either. Thoughts are like clouds drifting through the sky of awareness. They arise within it, but they do not define it. You can test this. Watch your thoughts right now. Try to predict the next one. Try to control it. Try to stop them entirely. You'll quickly notice that you can't. Thoughts appear on their own, uninvited, like guests you didn't know were coming. And yet, there's something watching them appear. That watcher isn't doing the thinking. It isn't the thought. It's simply present. It's the same with emotions. Anger flares up, then fades. Sadness arrives, then softens. Even identity shifts over time. What you believed at 10 isn't what you believe now. But the one who watched all those changes unfold has never moved. That watcher was present in childhood, in adolescence, in adulthood. It was there in moments of triumph and despair. It was there before you had a name for yourself, and it will still be there when names and stories fall away. So what is it? What is this transparent witness that seems to hover behind everything yet can never be found? Perhaps the better question is, why are you so sure it belongs to you? We call it my awareness, but that's a trick of language. It might be more accurate to say you belong to it. You are not the owner of awareness. You are one of countless appearances within it, like a wave rising and falling in the ocean. Awareness doesn't live in you. You live in it. And here's the most unsettling part. If awareness is not inside your body, then it's not yours at all. It's not personal. It's not individual. It's the same awareness looking out through billions of eyes, listening through billions of ears. The only difference is the story it tells itself in each case. This is the transparent watcher, the centerless, formless, locationless field that is always present but never seen. And once you glimpse it, you realize that everything else, thoughts, feelings, identity, even the body, is just decoration on its surface. And that realization leads to an even deeper paradox. If there's no solid I behind the watching, then who's controlling any of this? Who's steering the ship, speaking the words, making the choices? The answer might be that no one is, that all of it, every action, every word, every heartbeat, is arising spontaneously, unfolding inside awareness without a captain at the helm. And if that's true, the next illusion to investigate is one of the most stubborn of all, the illusion of control itself. You believe you're in control. That's the story you've been told since birth. You decide, you choose, you act. Every movement, every thought, every spoken word, all of it, you're taught, is authored by you. But what if this sense of control is nothing more than a comforting hallucination? What if the feeling of I'm doing this is just a story your mind tells itself after the fact? We hinted at this illusion before, with experiments like Benjamin Libet's, where the brain's decision to move occurs milliseconds before conscious awareness chooses, but the deeper truth goes far beyond milliseconds. The illusion of control pervades every layer of human experience. It's not just that decisions are made before you're aware of them. It's that awareness itself is often just watching the show. Let's start with something ordinary. Walking. When you go for a walk, you don't consciously plan every muscle contraction. You don't calculate how much force to exert on each step, or when to shift your balance. It just happens. The legs move, the arms swing, the body propels itself forward. You feel like you're doing it, but in reality, you are doing almost nothing. The same is true for speech. When you speak, do you consciously construct every sentence? Do you deliberately assemble each word, one by one? Most of the time, you don't even know what you're going to say, until the words are already coming out of your mouth. Thoughts become speech spontaneously. You witness them, rather than control them. And thoughts themselves? They're the clearest evidence of all. Try this. Sit quietly, and wait for your next thought. Did you decide what it would be? Did you choose when it would arrive? Thoughts simply appear, fully formed. You don't summon them, you don't manufacture them. They emerge, unbidden, like clouds forming in the sky. And yet the moment they appear, you take credit. I thought that. But did you? Psychologists call this phenomenon intentional binding, the brain's tendency to link actions and outcomes into a single story of control, even when no real control exists. It's why you feel like you decided to turn the page a moment after the decision was already in motion. It's why you believe you chose to feel happy or sad when those emotions arise on their own. Your mind retroactively builds a narrative. I did this. I made this happen. And it's not just individual actions. This illusion extends to the grand narrative of your life. Think of all the so-called choices you've made, your language, your beliefs, your personality. How many of those did you consciously design? Most of them were shaped by forces you didn't choose: genetics, upbringing, culture, chance. The building blocks of who you are were assembled long before you could choose anything at all. Yet, you still feel like the author. You still cling to the story of me, the decision maker, the controller, the captain of the ship. Why? Because the alternative is terrifying. To accept that there is no true controller is to accept that you are not the driver of your life, you are the passenger. And humans, by nature, resist that truth. But philosophers and neuroscientists alike have been poking holes in this story for centuries. Arthur Schopenhauer famously wrote, "Man can do what he wills, but he cannot will what he wills." Modern neuroscience echoes this. It shows that you do not decide what you want. Desires arise before you have a say. You do not decide what to think. Thoughts happen before you know they're there. You do not decide to be aware. Awareness is already present before you appear. And still, the hallucination persists. Why? Because it serves a purpose. The illusion of control keeps the organism motivated. It gives the human story coherence. It creates the psychological glue that binds together the fragments of experience into a unified self. It's not real, but it's useful. Without it, society itself might collapse. But usefulness doesn't make something true. Consider the act of dreaming. In a dream, events unfold without your control. People appear. Settings change. Entire narratives emerge spontaneously. Yet, within the dream, you might believe you're choosing what happens. Only when you wake up do you realize you never had control at all. Life, perhaps, is the same. The sense of control is part of the dream, one of its most convincing illusions. This realization doesn't mean you're powerless. It means that power isn't what you thought it was. The river still flows, even if there's no one steering it. Decisions still happen. Words still form. Actions still unfold. But they do so as part of a larger process, one that includes but is not owned by you. So what remains when the illusion of control dissolves? Strangely, not despair, but freedom. Without the burden of being the author, there's nothing to defend, nothing to prove. Life can move without resistance. Events can unfold without blame, and awareness, freed from the constant need to manage, can simply observe. This is the paradox at the heart of all spiritual traditions. The moment you stop clinging to control, you discover a deeper intelligence operating beneath everything. The body breathes, the heart beats, the sun rises, life lives itself. And you were never steering the ship. You were the open sea all along. But if no one is in control, then who or what is doing the watching? And is the watcher itself an illusion too? The next step is to follow this mystery further, into a question that pulls the rug out from under everything you think you know. If there's no one controlling, is there even anyone watching at all? Close your eyes for a moment. Shut out the light, block the world, and notice something curious. You are still seeing, not with your eyes, perhaps, not with the rods and cones that translate light into meaning, but with something deeper. There is still a field here, a dark, shifting canvas, a sense of space, a watcher gazing into the blackness. Something is still looking, even when the tools of looking have gone offline. This simple exercise reveals a profound truth. Vision is not seeing. Eyes are not necessary for perception. What we call sight is not bound to the physical act of photons striking the retina. It is an experience, and experiences can arise without their usual instruments. You can stare without eyes. You can witness without light, and the one who witnesses is not located behind the eyeballs. Think about dreams. In dreams, your eyes are closed and motionless, yet you see vividly faces, landscapes, entire worlds unfolding before you. The color of a sunset, the flicker of firelight, the details of a childhood home, all of it appears with stunning realism, and none of it requires a single photon of light. None of it depends on the physical eye. The vision is happening in awareness itself. If seeing can happen without eyes in a dream, why do we assume it requires eyes when awake? The truth is, eyes are just one doorway into perception, a biological tool that gathers raw data. But perception itself? That's something awareness does on its own. Eyes gather light. Awareness creates experience. And that creation is not confined to the skull. Consider people who are blind, but still experience visual phenomena. Some, due to damage in the visual cortex, experience blind sight, a condition in which they cannot consciously see, yet can still detect and respond to visual stimuli. They might navigate obstacles, or guess the direction of movement. Even though they report seeing nothing, something is perceiving, even without conscious sight. Others, despite losing their eyes entirely, continue to see in dreams or hallucinations. Their awareness constructs visual experience out of memory, imagination, or pure spontaneous creation. The organ is gone, but the seeing remains, which suggests that eyes are not the source of sight. They're just one input to an already active process. Here's another strange fact. You are constantly seeing things that aren't there. Every second your visual system fills in blind spots, corrects distortions and constructs details that don't exist in the raw sensory data. A significant portion of what you think you're seeing is actually generated by your brain, not received from the world. The experience of vision is always partly imagined. And yet, you feel as though you're passively looking out. Why? Because the brain hides its own authorship. It creates the illusion that the world simply appears before you. But the reality is that sight is an inside-out process, an act of awareness, not just an act of biology. This means something radical. Even when your eyes are open and functioning, you are not truly looking through them. You are staring from awareness. The eyes are just tools, like lenses on a camera, but the camera doesn't see, you do. The picture forms not in the lens but in the consciousness observing it. Let's take this even further. There are countless accounts of people in deep meditation reporting an experience known as inner seeing. They describe perceiving space, light, or even vast vistas while their eyes are closed. These aren't hallucinations in the traditional sense. They're direct experiences, awareness observing itself, without relying on sensory input. Tibetan mystics have called this clear light vision, while Christian contemplatives referred to it as the eye of the soul. Modern neuroscience might interpret this differently. It would say that the visual cortex is still active, generating imagery without external input. But even that raises a deeper question. Who is aware of the imagery? The neurons don't experience themselves. Something else, something prior is watching them. And here's the unsettling part. That watcher is the same one who sees when your eyes are open. Whether the image is external or internal, retinal or imagined, the witness remains unchanged. It doesn't belong to the eyes. It doesn't even belong to the brain. It is something more fundamental, pure awareness, gazing into experience itself. Try another experiment. Close your eyes again and picture a vivid scene, perhaps a forest path or a childhood room. Notice how you can see it without effort. Now, open your eyes. The visual field changes, but the act of seeing does not. The watcher was present in both cases. It didn't vanish when the image changed. It didn't move. It didn't relocate from inside your skull to outside the world. It was there all along. The conclusion is inescapable. Seeing does not require eyes, because seeing is not an action. It's a condition. It's what awareness does, and awareness has no location. This is why people who undergo near-death experiences often report seeing their own bodies from above, despite their physical eyes being closed and inactive. Whether or not you believe those reports, they illustrate a consistent truth across countless traditions and testimonies. Perception does not seem to be bound to a physical vantage point. It happens wherever awareness is. And if perception can occur without eyes, then what else might occur without a body? What else might awareness be capable of, once you stop mistaking the instruments for the source? The body's senses were never the gateway. They were the disguise. The real eye is not in the skull. It's in the silence behind every image, every dream, every memory, every hallucination. It's in the boundless awareness that sees seeing itself. You were never looking out from your eyes. The world was always rising in you. And if sight itself can exist without the body, then what about the gaze? The watcher, the one doing the looking? Perhaps that too was never in your skull to begin with. Think carefully about the sensation of looking. Not what you see, not the content of vision, but the subtle feeling of being a point that looks outward at the world. Most people, when asked where that point is, gesture to their head, somewhere behind the eyes, a little space behind the forehead, a hidden vantage point from which consciousness peers out through the body's windows. But is that really where you are? Try this experiment. Relax your gaze and let your attention wander beyond the immediate field of view. Notice how the sense of being behind the eyes begins to soften. The location of the looker starts to blur. With enough focus, it disappears entirely. The act of looking remains, but there's no obvious place it's coming from. And once that happens, something extraordinary begins to occur. The gaze floats. It's no longer tethered to the skull. It's not anchored behind the eyes. It's as if awareness itself is hovering, sometimes slightly behind the body, sometimes above it, sometimes spread across the entire field of view. The more you pay attention, the more fluid that point of perception becomes. It's not fixed. It moves. This phenomenon is not imagination. It's been documented in countless meditation traditions, philosophical texts, and even psychological experiments. In Tibetan Dzogchen practice, for example, meditators are taught to observe the observer until it dissolves. Once it does, they report that their awareness no longer feels like it's inside the body at all. Instead, it feels panoramic, boundless, everywhere at once. Neuroscientists have observed similar effects in sensory experiments. When participants are immersed in virtual environments or subjected to out-of-body illusions, their felt location of awareness can shift dramatically. In some studies, people report that their vantage point has moved a few feet behind them, or even above their body, despite no physical change. This floating gaze reveals a crucial truth. Your sense of where you are is not tied to the body's physical position. It's a mental construct, and like all constructs, it's surprisingly easy to manipulate. Consider the out-of-body illusion pioneered by Henrik Ehrson. Participants wore headsets, showing a live video feed of their back from a camera placed behind them. When researchers gently tapped their chest in sync with the visual of their back being tapped, participants reported a startling shift. They felt as though they were now located behind their own body, watching it from a distance. Their physical body hadn't moved, but their awareness had. Or think of lucid dreams, where the dreamer often experiences themselves hovering over scenes, shifting perspectives at will, or watching their own dream body from afar. These experiences feel entirely real, even though the physical body remains motionless in bed. The gaze, it seems, is free to move without the body following. And this isn't limited to extraordinary states. It happens in ordinary life too. Have you ever read a book so deeply that you forgot you were sitting in a chair? Or watched a movie so intently that you felt inside the story? Your vantage point shifted. You weren't behind your eyes anymore. You were there inside the page, or the screen, and when you snapped out of it, you might have felt briefly disoriented, like returning from somewhere else. That somewhere else is proof of how fluid the gaze really is. It's not a physical point, but a movable center of awareness, one that isn't tied to the brain or the skull. It can move outward into imagined spaces, backward into memory, forward into dreams. It can expand to fill an entire room or shrink to a single point of focus, and the body follows none of these movements. What's even more profound is that the gaze doesn't even need a direction. With practice, you can feel awareness looking inward instead of outward. You can sense it looking at itself, and when that happens, something strange emerges. The distinction between looking and being looked at collapses. There's no observer, and no observed, just a vast floating presence, silent, centerless, everywhere. This is why mystics across cultures describe the same experience with different words. The expanding self, the witness consciousness, the sky-like mind. It's the recognition that awareness was never a point trapped behind the eyes. It was always the space in which all points appear. Even modern science hints at this. Research on the default mode network, the brain regions associated with self-referential thought, shows that when people enter deep meditative states, activity in this network decreases. The result is a profound shift in how the self is experienced, no longer as a point of reference behind the eyes, but as a diffuse field without edges. This has radical implications. If your vantage point can move independently of your physical location, then you were never inside the body to begin with. The body is not the container of awareness. It's just one of many things inside awareness. The floating gaze is proof that you are not the observer behind the eyes. You are the field in which observation happens. Try it now. Instead of locating yourself in your head, imagine your awareness hovering 2 feet above you, or behind you, or expanding outward, until it fills the entire room. Notice how quickly it obeys. Notice how possible it is to relocate. If you were truly bound to the body, that exercise would be impossible, but it isn't. because you were never inside the body in the first place. The gaze was never yours. It was never anchored. It was always free, sliding effortlessly across the landscape of perception, expanding and contracting, zooming in and out. It was never trapped behind flesh and bone. Flesh and bone were just one of its many vantage points. And now, the illusion of location, like the illusions of control, authorship and ownership before it starts to unravel too. If the gaze is free-floating, if you can exist anywhere, if even perspective isn't tied to the body, then what about the thoughts themselves? Where do they come from? Who's speaking in your head? What if even the inner voice is instead yours? Where do your thoughts come from? It's a simple question, one you've probably never stopped to ask. They seem to belong to you. They use your voice. They speak your language. They narrate your life. So naturally you assume they're yours, that they arise from some inner chamber in your brain, the private echo chamber of me. But pause and watch closely, and something strange happens. You realize you have no idea where they come from at all. Try it right now. Sit still, and wait for your next thought. Watch carefully for its arrival. You don't know what it will be, or when it will appear. Suddenly, it's there. Maybe it's about lunch. Maybe it's a memory. Maybe it's a question about this very sentence. But one thing is certain, you didn't choose it. It just appeared. If you are the thinker, why can't you control the thinking? This question has haunted philosophers and scientists for centuries. David Hume, the Scottish philosopher, wrote that he could never catch a self-producing thoughts, only thoughts themselves. Friedrich Nietzsche compared consciousness to a surface, with ideas bubbling up from depths we do not control. And Arthur Schopenhauer was even more blunt. A man can do what he wills, but he cannot will what he wills. Modern neuroscience supports their suspicions. Studies using EEG and fMRI consistently show that the neural activity leading to a thought or decision begins milliseconds or even seconds before we become aware of it. In one famous experiment, scientists could predict a person's decision up to 7 seconds before they consciously made it. In other words, the thought formed long before the you who claims it even showed up. The truth is, thoughts don't have origins in the way we imagine. They don't spring from a little you hiding behind your forehead, typing them out like a writer at a desk. They arise spontaneously, out of nowhere, into the open field of awareness. And once they appear, then the story begins. I thought that. I decided this. I believe that. But the ownership comes after the fact. Think of it like a commentator at a sports game. The action is already happening on the field. The commentator simply narrates it, claiming authority over events they have no control over. Your sense of authorship over thoughts works the same way. You're not creating the thoughts, you're narrating them. This realization can feel disorienting. After all, we build our entire identity on the idea that we're the authors of our mental lives. But if we're not, then who or what is doing the thinking? The most honest answer might be, no one. Thoughts don't need a thinker any more than clouds need a cloud maker. They are phenomena that arise naturally from conditions. Some are triggered by sensory input, some by memory, some by unconscious associations formed long ago. Most emerge from a vast tangled web of neural activity, far beyond conscious reach. But none of them require a you to push them into being. Even more unsettling is how often these thoughts contradict each other. One moment, you're convinced you want to quit your job. The next, you're terrified to leave. Which of those is you? If you were truly the author, why would your creations argue with each other? Why would they appear without your permission and fight for dominance in your mind? The truth is, you're less an author than a witness to a chaotic parliament of thoughts, none of which you invited, all of which demand to be heard. And yet, you still identify with them. You say, I'm angry, as if you built the anger brick by brick. But anger arrived unannounced, burned hot for a while, and left. You say, I'm anxious, as if you requested it. But you didn't. It just appeared, and then disappeared. You were simply there to watch it happen. The Buddhist tradition uses a powerful metaphor for this. The mind is like a guest house. Thoughts, emotions, and perceptions are guests who come and go. Some stay longer than others. Some are loud. Some are gentle. But none of them live there. None of them are the house itself, and none of them own the space in which they appear. Once you understand this, a strange freedom emerges. If you are not the author of your thoughts, you don't have to be their prisoner. You don't have to believe everything they say. You don't have to act on every impulse. You don't have to cling to every story they tell. You can simply watch them arise, unfold, and fade, like clouds drifting across the sky. And something deeper happens when you start watching, instead of owning. You begin to notice the space between thoughts, the stillness before one appears and after it vanishes. That stillness is not empty. It is awareness itself, unchanging, unconditioned, untouched by the stories passing through it. It was there before the thought. It remains after the thought. It is the only constant. And that's where the illusion of thinking truly collapses. Because if thoughts appear spontaneously, and if they're observed rather than authored, then the thinker is just another thought, an especially persistent one perhaps, but still just another guest in the house. So the question shifts. It's no longer where do thoughts come from, but who are they coming to? The answer is the same one we've been circling all along: awareness, not a person, not a self, not a thinker, just the vast empty field that thoughts appear in. They rise from nowhere, and they fall back into nowhere, and the you who believed you were creating them dissolves into that same nowhere, too. This doesn't make thinking meaningless. It makes it miraculous, because every thought, every idea, memory, image, or dream is a spontaneous appearance in the infinite, and you are not the thinker of them, you are the witness in which they unfold. And once you see this, the next illusion to unravel becomes clear. If thoughts have no origin, and they're not yours, then what about the sense of self they keep talking about? Who is the I they refer to so often? Maybe that too is just another thought, an illusion we've been believing for far too long. Imagine for a moment that every word you've ever used to describe yourself, your name, your age, your story, is suddenly erased. Your memories fade, your biography dissolves. All the labels you cling to, student, parent, believer, skeptic, are gone, and yet something remains. Something is still here, looking out. Something is still seeing. What is that? It's not your personality. That changes over time. It's not your body. That's been aging and replacing its cells since the day you were born. It's not even your memories, because many of them are inaccurate, rewritten, or forgotten. And yet, despite all these changes, one thing has never moved: the simple fact that experience is happening. That's the strange truth we reach when we look deeply enough into awareness. There is seeing but no seer. There is hearing but no hearer. There is thinking but no thinker. The verbs of consciousness, seeing, hearing, knowing, feeling, don't require a subject to perform them. They happen by themselves, spontaneously, in the same way that rain falls or rivers flow. This isn't just philosophical poetry. It's what you find when you examine experience directly. Try a simple exercise. Sit quietly and rest your attention on what's in front of you. Don't describe it. Don't name it. Don't even think about what it is. Just notice that seeing is happening. Now look for the one who is doing the seeing. Search behind your eyes, behind your thoughts, behind the idea of me. What do you find? Nothing. You find no observer sitting in the back of your skull, no pilot in the cockpit, no little homunculus peering out from behind your eyes. There is only the act of seeing unfolding on its own. And yet, because language requires a subject, we say, I see, but the I is added after the fact, an overlay pasted onto a process that doesn't need it. This insight has been central to contemplative traditions for thousands of years. The ancient Buddhist text, Anattalakkhana Sutta, the discourse on the not-self, teaches that the 5 aggregates of experience, form, feeling, perception, mental formations, consciousness, are all impermanent, and therefore cannot be identified as I or mine. They arise and vanish like waves, but the ocean beneath them, awareness itself, remains untouched. Modern neuroscience, too, echoes this discovery. Brain imaging has shown that the sense of a unified self is not a single structure but a dynamic network, a narrative constructed moment by various regions of the brain. When certain areas are damaged or inhibited, the sense of I can disappear entirely, even though perception continues. Patients with depersonalization, or certain kinds of temporal lobe epilepsy, often report that things are still happening, but there's no one here to whom they're happening. This suggests something radical. The self is not required for experience. It's an interpretation layered on top of experience. A useful one perhaps, but still a story. Think of the sky. Clouds drift across it. Some large and stormy, some thin and fleeting. You might point and say, there's a cloud, but the sky itself is not doing anything. It doesn't produce the clouds. It doesn't hold them in place. They arise, change shape, and dissolve. Awareness is like that sky. The contents of experience, thoughts, perceptions, identities, are the clouds, and the self is just a particularly persistent cloud that pretends to be the sky. Here's another exercise to test this. The next time you're deeply immersed in a film or a book, notice how the sense of I often fades into the background. You stop narrating your experience and simply see that I isn't needed to make perception happen. It's only needed when we want to talk about perception. It's not the witness of the story, it's part of the story. And this goes deeper still. Even the statement, I am aware, is slightly misleading. It implies that I is something separate from awareness, something that has awareness, but the truth is the reverse. Awareness doesn't belong to you, you belong to awareness. The I is something that appears within it, like a character in a dream, insisting that it's the dreamer. The Zen master Huang Po put it beautifully. Stop talking and thinking, and there is nothing you will not be able to know. In other words, the self is a layer of noise, obscuring the clarity of direct experience. Remove that noise, and perception becomes immediate, boundless, and unfiltered. This is why profound meditative states often feel like losing yourself. People describe the sense of self dropping away entirely, yet everything continues. Vision still occurs, sounds still register, thoughts still arise, but they no longer belong to anyone. They're just part of the great unfolding of awareness. And here's the twist. Once the illusion of the self dissolves, the world itself changes. The boundary between in here and out there begins to blur. The tree isn't something you're looking at. It's part of the same field of awareness that you are. The sound of the wind isn't something you hear. It's hearing happening by itself within the same space that thoughts and sensations arise. You never were the one doing the seeing. Seeing was always happening, effortlessly, whether you were there or not. The self was just a concept layered onto the process, like a sticker placed on flowing water, claiming it as mine. And if seeing doesn't require a self, what else doesn't? What if everything from memory to identity to agency is built on the same illusion? What if the story of you is just a convenient fiction the mind tells itself to make sense of a universe that never needed one? The deeper you go into this mystery, the clearer it becomes. Experience is not happening to anyone, it's just happening. Life is not unfolding for someone, it's just unfolding. And in that realization, a strange kind of freedom emerges. You don't need to hold the world together anymore. You don't need to define who's behind the eyes. You don't need to cling to the idea of me. There is seeing, there is knowing, there is life, and none of it needs a self to exist. Close your eyes and imagine floating in complete darkness. No sound, no temperature, no sense of weight or space. Slowly your awareness of your body begins to fade. You don't feel your feet, your hands disappear. Your chest loses its shape. Soon you can't tell where your body ends and the surrounding space begins. And then something remarkable happens. You are still here. The body is gone, but awareness remains. This isn't science fiction. It's a real phenomenon, documented in everything from sensory deprivation experiments to deep meditative states. People immersed in float tanks, for instance, sealed pods where water, air, light, and sound are all controlled, often report that after a while their body dissolves. They no longer feel separate from the water or the air. Some say they feel like a disembodied point of consciousness, floating in infinite space. Others report feeling everywhere at once. What these experiences show is that your sense of having or being a body is not as solid as it seems. It's a construction, fragile, malleable, and dependent on constant sensory feedback. Take that feedback away, and the body vanishes from awareness. But you don't vanish with it. The observer remains. This shouldn't be surprising. After all, your awareness of your body changes constantly. When you're lost in thought, you can forget your body for minutes or hours. When you dream, you might have a completely different body, or no body at all, and still feel perfectly real. Even now as you read this, most of your body is in the background. You're not actively aware of your knees or your kidneys, yet they exist. Your sense of embodiment isn't continuous. It flickers. But here's the deeper question. If you can be conscious without a body, then is the body really you? This question becomes even more pressing when you look at what happens near the edges of consciousness, during trauma, coma, or near-death experiences. Many people who have been clinically dead for minutes describe floating above their body, watching it from above. They see doctors working on them. They hear conversations they couldn't possibly hear. They are aware, but no longer in the body. Skeptics dismiss these accounts as hallucinations, byproducts of oxygen deprivation or chemical cascades, and perhaps they are. But even if they are hallucinations, they reveal something profound. The experience of consciousness does not require a body to feel real. Even if the body is absent, the sense of being present continues. There's another layer to this mystery. In many deep meditative traditions, practitioners report reaching states where the body is no longer felt at all. They call it formless awareness or pure consciousness. Tibetan monks describe dissolving into clear light. Zen masters speak of dropping the body. They are not unconscious. They are not asleep. They are fully awake, but the body is gone. And yet, they don't feel less alive. They feel more alive. This suggests that the body is not the source of consciousness, but one of its contents, something that arises within awareness, not something that contains it. When that content fades, awareness doesn't die, it expands. Modern neuroscience offers clues here too. Studies of body awareness show that it's an active construction of the brain. The parietal cortex integrates signals from vision, touch, proprioception and internal organs to create a map of "this is me." But that map is flexible. It can expand, contract, shift, or disappear entirely. In experiments using virtual reality or illusions, people can be made to feel as if they're located in another body or even outside their body entirely. The self moves without the body moving at all. This plasticity points to a larger truth. The body is not a prison for awareness. It's a reference point, a tool, a costume, and like all costumes, it can be taken off without losing the actor beneath. This has staggering implications for how we understand life and death. If awareness can exist without the body, if it can persist when the body fades into the background or disappears entirely, then perhaps it's not produced by the body at all. Perhaps the body is simply one way awareness expresses itself, one vehicle among many. Think of light shining through a lamp. The lamp shapes the light, directs it, gives it a certain glow, but the light itself is not in the lamp. It's not made by the lamp. And if the lamp breaks, the light still exists. It just shines differently. Your body is like that lamp. Awareness is the light. And once you realize this, your relationship to the body changes. You stop clinging to it as if it defines you. You stop fearing its aging, its fragility, its inevitable end, because you see that even without it, the essence of what you are, this silent, boundless awareness, remains untouched. It also changes how you relate to others. If you're not the body, and neither are they, then the boundaries that divide me from you start to dissolve. What's left is something shared, something continuous, something deeper than flesh, the awareness that underlies all experience. So what happens when the body disappears? Nothing essential. Life continues. Awareness remains. The story changes shape, but the storyteller was never in the story to begin with. And once the illusion of the body dissolves, the next illusion starts to tremble too, the illusion of ownership. Because if the body isn't you, then the sensations it feels, the pleasures and pains it registers, were never yours either. Touch seems like the most intimate proof that you are inside your body. You feel the pressure of a chair beneath you, the weight of a cup in your hand, the softness of fabric against your skin. These sensations seem to confirm your location. I'm in here, this is me, these are my experiences. But if you look closely, if you observe the act of touch without assumption, something deeply unsettling begins to emerge. You're not the one being touched at all. Let's try something simple. Take your hand and press it gently against your other hand. Notice the sensation. It seems obvious that one hand is doing the touching, and the other is being touched. But look closer, aren't both hands sensing simultaneously? Isn't the feeling identical on both sides? Which hand is the toucher, and which is the touched? The distinction collapses. There's only touching happening, without a clear owner. This paradox isn't just poetic. It's fundamental to how sensation works. Neuroscience tells us that touch is not a direct transmission from skin to mind. It's a construction, an interpretation. Sensors in your skin send signals to the brain, but what you feel is not those signals. It's an experience your awareness creates based on them. The feeling isn't happening in your hand. It's happening in you. And here's the strange part, that same feeling could be generated without the body at all. Consider the rubber hand illusion, a now classic experiment in cognitive science. A participant's real hand is hidden from view, while a lifelike rubber hand is placed in front of them. When both the hidden real hand and the visible fake hand are stroked simultaneously, participants begin to feel the touch in the rubber hand. They know it isn't real. They know it isn't theirs, but their awareness insists otherwise. It relocates the sensation into something that isn't part of their body. This simple trick reveals something profound. Touch doesn't belong to you. It doesn't even belong to the body. It can be outsourced to plastic, wood, or metal if the right conditions are met. Sensation is flexible, fluid, and transferable. The boundary between me and not me is not written into reality. It's drawn by the mind. But the illusion goes deeper. In certain neurological conditions, like alien hand syndrome, a person's hand will move on its own, seemingly without their control. They might watch in horror as their fingers button a shirt they didn't intend to button, or pick up objects they didn't decide to touch. The sensation of agency is gone, but the feeling of touch remains. It's as if someone else's hand were attached to their body. Or consider somatoparaphrenia, a rare disorder in which patients deny ownership of one of their limbs entirely. They feel the touch, but they insist the limb belongs to someone else. The sensory data is present, the brain registers it, but the story of mine has collapsed. These examples show that touch, and the sense of owning it, can come apart. The feeling of being touched does not require a you to receive it. It does not even require a belief that the body is yours. The experience of touch is independent of ownership. Now think about how often you use the phrase, I feel. It suggests possession, as if sensations were objects you own. But sensations are more like weather patterns passing through the sky. They arise, they shift, they fade. They don't belong to the sky, and they don't belong to you. They are simply happening. And once you see that, something begins to unravel. The warmth of a blanket, the sting of a cut, the rush of a breeze. All of these are just appearances in awareness. They have no fixed owner. They do not confirm that you are inside the body. They only confirm that experience is happening. This realization becomes even clearer in dreams. In a dream, you can feel the wind on your face, the ground beneath your feet, the impact of a fall. Those sensations feel utterly real. But where is your body then? It's lying motionless in bed, and yet the sensations continue. If touch can exist without the physical body, then it's not the body's property. Even more startling, people who have lost limbs often continue to feel them through phantom sensations. They feel warmth in a hand that no longer exists. They feel their fingers curl, itch, or clench. Touch persists even when the body part is gone. What, then, is being touched? The only honest answer is awareness. It is the space in which all sensations appear. The sensation of touch does not prove that you are in a body. It proves only that experience exists, and that experience is not tied to any particular location. This is why advanced meditation practices often focus on dissolving the boundaries of sensation. Practitioners report that, at a certain depth, they no longer feel my body being touched. They feel touch everywhere, or nowhere at all. The distinction between self and world evaporates. Sensations lose their labels. The I that once claimed them vanishes. At first, this might seem frightening. If the body isn't mine, if touch isn't mine, what's left of me? But that's the point. The me was never the one feeling anything. It was just a story the mind told to make sense of sensation. And once that story collapses, something extraordinary happens. You begin to feel the world directly, without filters, without ownership, without separation. The touch of the wind isn't on you, it's part of you. The ground beneath your feet isn't supporting you, it's arising within the same field as you. The boundary dissolves completely. The truth is, nothing was ever touching you because there was never a you there to touch. There was only sensation, pure, selfless, ownerless, free. And if even touch, the most personal of experiences, does not belong to you, then what about the body you thought was yours? What about the face you see in the mirror? Perhaps even that is not you at all. Stand in front of a mirror and look into your own eyes. That's you, right? That face, that posture, that familiar reflection. It all seems to confirm your existence. You are in there, behind that skin and bone, peering outward. But stay there a little longer. Keep staring. Don't blink. Don't move. Watch the image not as me, but as something simply seen. Something strange starts to happen. The longer you look, the less familiar the reflection becomes. The mind stops labeling the features, nose, mouth, eyes, and they dissolve into shapes and shadows. The face feels like someone else's. It might even seem to shift, to blur, to change expressions on its own. This isn't a trick of imagination. It's a documented psychological effect known as the strange face illusion. When you stare long enough, your sense of identity begins to loosen. The mirror stops reflecting you and starts revealing something far more unsettling: the fact that there's nothing actually in there to reflect. This phenomenon is deeper than a visual illusion. It's a philosophical one, because what, exactly, are you seeing in the mirror? A collection of features, a body that's constantly aging, a face that's slightly different every day, but the you behind those changes, the one who remembers past faces and anticipates future ones, never appears. The mirror shows only a shell. The watcher remains invisible. And that's the first clue that the reflection isn't who you are. Consider this: every 7 to 10 years, nearly every cell in your body is replaced. The face in old photographs, the you from childhood, is made of entirely different matter from the face staring back at you now. Yet you say both are me. How can something that changes so completely still be you? Because you were never the face. The face is just a temporary mask that awareness wears, and masks can change without the actor ever disappearing. The philosopher Thomas Metzinger argues that the self we see in the mirror is a phenomenal self-model, an internal simulation created by the brain to keep track of the organism's boundaries. It's useful, but it's not real. It's like a cursor on a computer screen. It shows you where you are, but it isn't you. The real processes are happening invisibly in the background. Yet, we cling to the image. We build our entire identity on it. We decorate it, display it, and fear its decay. But the truth is, the reflection has never once seen you. It's never shown the silent awareness behind the eyes. It's only ever shown a costume. And if you don't believe that, consider what happens when the mirror is gone. In dreams, you might inhabit a different body entirely. A younger version of yourself, someone of another gender, even an animal. Sometimes, you have no body at all. And yet, you still feel like you. The awareness persists, even when the reflection disappears. This is why people who lose limbs or undergo dramatic physical changes still feel like themselves. The mirror's image might shift dramatically, but the sense of being remains. The body is not the self, it's just the interface. And here's where things get even stranger. Mirrors don't just reflect bodies, they reflect the stories we attach to them. When you look in a mirror, you don't see just a face. You see me at this age, me with this history, me with these mistakes and hopes. The mirror becomes a screen for the narrative of self, but that narrative isn't visible either. It's something awareness overlays onto the reflection, a story it tells about what it's seeing. What happens when that story stops? In certain contemplative traditions, practitioners engage in mirror meditation, staring into their own reflection until the sense of identity collapses. At first, the experience can be unsettling. The face seems alien, the body feels like a puppet, but eventually something deeper emerges, a quiet recognition that the reflection isn't me or mine. It's just an appearance like any other, rising and falling within awareness. And once you see this, something profound becomes obvious. You are not the image in the glass. You never were. You are the one watching the image come and go, and the watcher is invisible, so invisible that no mirror, no camera, no photograph has ever captured it. This is why so many spiritual traditions use mirrors as metaphors for awareness itself. A mirror doesn't hold on to the images that appear in it. It doesn't judge them. It doesn't cling to them. Faces come and go, but the mirror remains unchanged. Awareness is the same. Thoughts, sensations, memories, and bodies appear within it, but none of them define it. They pass, but it stays. There's a reason you can't look directly at your own awareness. It has no form. It's not behind the eyes or inside the skull. It's not on the surface of your skin. It's not in the mirror. It is the space in which all those things appear. And the face you see, that's just another appearance. No different, fundamentally, from a passing thought or a sound in the distance. Now try this. Stand before a mirror again, but instead of saying, "That's me," say, "That's a reflection happening in awareness." See if you can feel the shift. The body stops being a container. The image stops being a self. It becomes just one more phenomenon arising and fading in the infinite space of experience. The mirror was never reflecting you. It was reflecting what awareness is currently wearing, and what it's wearing changes. But awareness never does. And once you realize this, another illusion starts to crack. The illusion that the body is the limit of perception, because if the mirror shows only appearances, and if the real you is never in the reflection, then perhaps perception itself isn't bound to the body at all. Perhaps it's far more spacious, far more mysterious, and far more expansive than you've ever imagined. Stand still for a moment. Don't speak. Don't move. Don't try to control your breath. Just be. Now, look closely at what's happening. The heart beats on its own. The lungs pull in air without asking for permission. Tiny muscles in your eyes adjust for focus. Your blood surges, cells divide, the earth spins, all of it without your involvement. You are motionless, and yet everything is moving. This is the first crack in the illusion of agency, because if the essential functions of your life, heartbeat, breath, digestion, happen without you, then what exactly do you control? Most people believe they're steering the ship of their lives, but when examined deeply, it becomes clear the ship sails itself. And this extends far beyond biology. Watch your thoughts for a few minutes, and you'll see that they rise and fall spontaneously. Watch your moods, and you'll notice they shift without warning. Even your actions, the movements you most strongly associate with choice, often occur before you've decided to make them. Neuroscientific studies repeatedly show that the brain initiates movement milliseconds, or even seconds before conscious awareness catches up. The you that claims to move is always late to the party. So what's really happening here? The truth is uncomfortable. Movement doesn't require a mover. Action doesn't require an agent. Just as waves move across the ocean without a waver, the processes of your life unfold without a doer. The sense of being one is added later, a narrative built on top of events that are already happening. Take walking, for example. You decide to walk to the kitchen, and your legs carry you there. It feels like you caused the movement, but the intricate orchestration of muscles, joints, balance, and sensory feedback happens far below conscious awareness. You don't command each fiber to contract. You don't calculate the arc of each step. The body walks. You simply witness it. The same is true of speaking. Words flow from your mouth with astonishing speed and complexity, yet you rarely know what you'll say before you say it. Language arises, structures itself, and emerges into the world, all without your conscious input. The mind doesn't compose speech, it reveals it. Even intention, the sense of deciding to act, is slippery. In Benjamin Libet's experiments, brain activity signaling movement appears hundreds of milliseconds before the subject becomes aware of the intention to move. Later research extended that window to several seconds. This means that by the time you think I'll reach for that glass, the action is already in motion. The sense of agency is a postscript, not a cause. If this feels strange, it's because you've been conditioned to see yourself as the driver. But what if you're not the driver at all? What if you're the road, the space through which movement happens? Mystics and philosophers have said this for centuries. The Bhagavad Gita declares, the self is not the doer. Taoist sages speak of wu-wei, action without action. The effortless unfolding of events when the illusion of control is dropped. In Zen, the phrase no self-action points to the same insight. The archer does not shoot, shooting happens. The dancer does not dance, dancing happens. Life moves, and you are not behind it. But this isn't just esoteric mysticism, it's observable fact. Consider what happens when you enter a flow state, when you're so immersed in an activity that the sense of self disappears. The painter becomes the painting, the runner becomes the run, the musician becomes the music. In those moments, there's no doer, only doing. And ironically, those are often the moments when performance is at its peak. The less you try, the more perfectly the action flows. This points to a profound truth. The self is not the source of movement. It's an interruption. It's commentary layered over a process that runs perfectly well without it. The river doesn't need a narrator to flow. So why does the illusion of agency persist? Because it's useful. Believing, I am doing this, creates a coherent narrative. It allows us to assign responsibility, to plan, to make meaning. But just because a story is useful, doesn't mean it's true. The reality is more like this. There is movement, and then there is the thought I moved. And once that story collapses, a remarkable shift occurs. Movement stops being something you do, and becomes something that simply is. Breathing, walking, speaking, creating, all of it unfolds as part of a larger process. The same process that makes the tides rise and galaxies spin. The same process that grows forests and births stars. You were never separate from it. You were it all along. This realization is liberating. Without the burden of doing, you stop fighting the flow of events. Life ceases to be a battle against circumstance and becomes a dance with it. Things still happen, choices, actions, consequences, but they are no longer personal burdens. They are expressions of a universe in motion. Try a simple exercise. Spend 1 hour observing your movements without claiming ownership. When you eat, notice how the hand reaches for the food before you decide. When you walk, feel how the legs move themselves. When you speak, observe how words pour out unbidden. See how much of your life unfolds without your control, and how little needs it. The paradox is this: once you stop believing you're the mover, you don't become passive, you become more alive. The dance continues, but now without resistance, without effort, without the friction of a false doer trying to direct it. There is just motion, flowing effortlessly through the field of awareness. And when you see this clearly, a deeper question arises, one that cuts to the core of existence itself. If even action doesn't require a self, then what about time? What if the unfolding of events is not happening to you or by you but as you? And what if time itself is just another illusion layered over the endless now? You say my body, my hands, my thoughts, my life. But pause and look closer at that language. If something is yours, then you must be distinct from it, the owner, not the owned. And if that's true, then who or what is the you doing the owning? The question is deceptively simple, yet profoundly destabilizing, because everything you call mine, your body, your sensations, your memories, even your very identity, is known to you. It appears to you. It is observed, which means it cannot be you. Consider the body. You can see your hands, feel your heartbeat, notice the tension in your muscles. These are experiences, changing from moment to moment. But the one who notices them, that doesn't change. The body grows and ages, heals and decays, but the witness remains. It watches cells multiply, bones lengthen, wrinkles deepen, as if the body were a piece of clothing that's constantly being refitted around an invisible form. You say, this is me, but what you really mean is, this is what I currently inhabit. The same is true of the mind. Thoughts arise without your permission, and vanish without your consent. Memories drift up uninvited, desires surge and fade like weather, and yet, through all of it, there is something stable, something that knows the thoughts are happening. If you were your thoughts, you couldn't observe them. If you were your feelings, you couldn't notice them. The fact that you do notice them suggests you are not what you notice. This isn't just philosophical wordplay. It's a fact you can verify in real time. Try this experiment. Sit quietly and repeat to yourself, I am not my thoughts. As each thought appears, label it thought, then let it go. Watch the next one arise, and do the same. After a while, something strange becomes clear. The thoughts are happening in you, but they are not you. They come and go. The awareness that observes them doesn't. Now, extend this insight to the body. Focus on a single sensation, the weight of your feet on the floor, the rhythm of your breath, the beat of your heart. Notice that the sensation is something you can observe, like a sound or a smell. That means it's an object of awareness, not the subject itself. And if even the body is an object of awareness, then you, whatever you are, must be something beyond it. This is where the illusion begins to crack, because once you strip away everything that can be observed, thoughts, emotions, memories, sensations, body, identity, what's left? Only the bare fact of being aware, not aware of something, but awareness itself. Not I am this, but simply I am. And this is where things get even stranger. That I has no properties. It has no color, no shape, no gender, no age. It cannot be measured, divided, or contained. It doesn't grow or shrink, come or go. It's not born, and it doesn't die. It was here before the body was born, and it will be here when the body is gone. It is not in the body is in it. The Upanishads called this the Atman, the eternal self beyond form. Zen masters call it original face. Neuroscientists call it pure consciousness. Whatever name you use, the message is the same. The true self is not what you think you are. It is not the sum of your memories, beliefs, or experiences. It is not the story you tell about yourself. It is the silent knower of all stories, the owner of everything, yet itself unowned. But if that's true, why does the illusion persist? Why do we cling so tightly to the things we are not? Because identity provides comfort. It gives shape to the infinite, meaning to the nameless. To say, I am this body, or I am these thoughts, is to build walls around the vastness of awareness, to make the boundless feel manageable. But those walls are imaginary, and they're the reason we suffer, because everything you identify with will eventually change. The body will age, the memories will fade, The stories will unravel, and if you believe you are those things, you will believe that you are dying with them. But if you see them for what they are, appearances in awareness, not awareness itself, then their passing is no longer a threat. Just as you do not grieve the thoughts that vanish or the breaths that pass, you need not grieve the stories that end. They were never you. Try another exercise throughout your day. Notice every time you use the word my body, my mind, my life, my problem, then ask yourself, who is the I behind the my? You'll find it has no name, no form, no history, and yet it is the most intimate thing you know. It's closer than your breath, older than your thoughts, deeper than your heartbeat. It is the constant background to every moment of your life. And once you see that clearly, a profound shift occurs. The world becomes lighter, loss hurts less, fear loosens its grip, because you realize that nothing essential can ever be taken from you. The body can fail, but awareness remains. The story can end, but the witness continues. The waves can crash and disappear, but the ocean, the real you, is untouched. In the end, everything you thought you owned, your body, your thoughts, your life, is just a temporary costume borrowed for a brief moment. But the one who wears the costume, that one has no beginning and no end. And perhaps the deepest paradox of all is this. The more you let go of what you think you own, the more you realize that nothing was ever separate from you to begin with. Stop for a moment and look around. The room you're in, the objects around you, the faint hum of distant noise, your heartbeat quietly pulsing beneath it all. Everything you perceive right now feels so real, so immediate and undeniable, that you rarely stop to question it. And yet, you've felt this exact same conviction before, in a dream. In the middle of a dream, nothing feels imaginary. The logic might be strange, the physics might bend, but the reality of it is never in doubt, not until you wake. Only then do you realize that the mountains and monsters, the strangers and stories, the fear and love, they were all made of thought. They were you, dressed up as a world. Now here's the uncomfortable question. How do you know you've truly woken up? Philosophers have wrestled with this question for centuries. Descartes famously doubted everything, the senses, the body, even the existence of the world, and concluded that the only thing he could know for certain was that thinking was happening. Everything else could, in principle, be a dream. Modern neuroscience echoes this unsettling thought. What you experience as reality is not reality itself, but a model of it, assembled inside your mind. Light hits your retina, electrical signals travel through neural pathways, and your brain stitches them together into a coherent story. The world you see is not out there. It's an internal simulation. In that sense, your waking life and your dreaming life are not opposites. They are points on the same spectrum. In both cases, awareness generates a world. In both, that world is experienced as external. And in both, the mind is fooled into believing that the experience is real. The difference is not how the world is created, but how stable and shared it is. Waking reality follows consistent rules and persists over time. Dream reality dissolves quickly and shifts unpredictably. But both are experiences, constructed in the same mysterious space. This realization has profound implications. It suggests that what you call being here, this unquestioned sense of inhabiting a physical world, may itself be a kind of dream, not in the simplistic sense that nothing exists, but in the deeper sense that here is not where you think it is. The room, the body, the flow of time, these are appearances in awareness, not containers of it. And that awareness? It's not inside the dream. The dream is inside it. Buddhist philosophers have long called this the dream of samsara, the cycle of perception, attachment and identity that keeps us believing we are limited beings living in a solid external world. Hindu texts speak of Maya, the cosmic illusion that veils the truth of consciousness from itself. Even modern physics hints at the same idea. Reality, some scientists argue, may be a holographic projection, a vast and complex simulation woven from information rather than matter. But these are not just abstract theories. You can feel this truth directly. Close your eyes and recall a vivid dream. Notice how effortlessly the mind built an entire world, complete with geography, characters, stories, and a you moving through it. Now, open your eyes and look around. How different is this? The world still appears, a you still moves through it, and yet, where is it really happening? Not out there, always here, within the infinite space of awareness. Consider the phenomenon of lucid dreaming. Moments when you realize, within a dream, that you are dreaming. The dream doesn't necessarily stop. The mountains and monsters may still appear, but your relationship to them changes. You stop taking them personally. You stop fearing them. You stop clinging to them. You interact with them, but you are no longer trapped by them. This shift is precisely what awakening means in many spiritual traditions. It's not about escaping the world or denying its existence. It's about seeing it clearly, as a dream appearing within consciousness. And once that shift happens, your relationship to everything changes. Pleasure loses its addictive pull. Pain loses its absolute sting. You still live, still love, still strive, but with the lightness of someone who knows they're walking through a story. Even neuroscience shows how malleable being here really is. Patients with certain brain injuries report feeling detached from their bodies, as if they are watching life from the outside. Others experience out-of-body experiences, perceiving themselves floating above their physical form. Psychedelics can dissolve the sense of spatial location entirely, creating the feeling of being everywhere and nowhere at once. All of these suggest that our ordinary sense of here is not fixed. It's a construction, fragile and flexible, built by the brain and believed by the mind. And if here is a dreamlike construction, then the same might be true for you, the person you think you are, the one with a name, a history, a personality, is another layer of the dream. You didn't choose your language, your childhood, your memories, or your preferences. They arose, shaped by forces you never controlled. They are part of the story too, and like the dream characters you meet at night, they vanish the moment you stop believing they're real. This doesn't make life meaningless. It makes it miraculous. Because once you realize that everything, from the distant galaxies to the taste of your morning coffee, is a dream appearing within awareness, you see just how infinite awareness is. It can hold mountains and molecules, pain and joy, death and rebirth. It can hold an entire universe without ever being contained by it. And maybe, just maybe, that's why you're here. Not to solve the dream, but to wake up inside it. To see it for what it is, a fleeting play of appearances in the timeless field of consciousness you've always been. To stop clinging to the story and start dancing in it. Because the truth is, you were never really here. Here was always in you. There's a voice inside your head, one that never seems to stop speaking. It narrates your day, judges your decisions, argues with itself, replays conversations, imagines futures, constructs explanations. It's the voice that says, I'm hungry, I'm not good enough. They shouldn't have said that. What if I fail? It's been with you for as long as you can remember, so constant, so familiar, that you assume it must be you. But what if it isn't set? Pause and listen. Right now as you read these words, another voice is reading them too. Silently, internally, without effort. Who is speaking? And more importantly, who is listening? The assumption that I am the voice is one of the deepest illusions the human mind clings to. But the reality is simpler and stranger. Thoughts appear spontaneously. You don't choose their content or their timing. They arise unbidden, shaped by memory, habit, culture, biology. Even when you try to think deliberately, the next sentence, the next word, the next association bubbles up on its own. The conscious eye simply claims ownership after the fact. You can verify this for yourself. Try to predict your next thought. You can't. Try to stop thoughts from appearing. You can't do that either. Try to will a specific thought into existence. You might set an intention, but the actual arrival of the thought is beyond your control. It just happens. The voice speaks, but no speaker can be found. Neuroscientists have confirmed this unsettling truth. Experiments show that the brain initiates decisions milliseconds before we become aware of making them. Thought, intention, and language arise in the neural machinery long before the conscious eye steps in to claim authorship. What we call thinking is not a process controlled by a central self. It's an emergent property of countless unconscious processes bubbling beneath awareness. This means the inner monologue is more like weather than speech, a spontaneous atmospheric pattern arising in the mind. And just as clouds pass without a skywriter, thoughts pass without a thinker. The speaker is a phantom, a convenient fiction stitched together by memory and language. The voice is real, but the person it seems to belong to is not. Ancient traditions understood this long before science. In Buddhist meditation, practitioners learn to observe thoughts without identifying with them, to hear the inner voice as just another sound in awareness. Zen masters speak of the original mind that exists before words and concepts. Advaita philosophers describe thoughts as waves on the surface of consciousness. dynamic, ever-changing, but never separate from the ocean beneath them. And when you begin to observe thoughts this way, something subtle shifts. Instead of being in the voice, you start to watch it. Instead of being swept along by its stories, you see them as stories. I'm worthless becomes there is a thought saying I'm worthless. I can't do this becomes there is a thought predicting failure. The thoughts haven't stopped, but their power begins to fade. They lose their authority. Once you see that they're not commands, not facts, not even yours, they are phenomena, arising and passing like clouds. This shift has profound consequences. The voice in your head is often the source of your suffering, not the world itself, but the commentary about the world. Events happen, but it's the story you tell about them that hurts. People speak, but it's the replay and reinterpretation that lingers. Even fear of the future is not fear of the future. It's fear of the thoughts about the future. Once you see the voice for what it is, spontaneous, impersonal, self-generating, you stop treating it as an oracle and start treating it as background noise. And here's the paradox. When you stop believing the voice is you hear it more clearly. You see its patterns. You notice how it loops, how it contradicts itself, how it parrots ideas it never examined. And you begin to realize that what you once called my opinions, my beliefs, my personality, are often just echoes, language absorbed from parents, culture, media, education. The voice isn't you. It's everything speaking through you. Even silence reveals this truth. In deep meditation, when the inner voice quiets, what remains is not nothing. What remains is the pure, wordless awareness in which the voice arises. That awareness, still, timeless, unchanging, was there before language formed, and will remain after the last thought fades. It is the sky, and thoughts are just passing weather. The 13th century mystic Rumi wrote, "There is a voice that doesn't use words. Listen." That voice isn't a voice at all. It's the presence behind the noise, the awareness behind the chatter, and when you tune into that, you discover a profound freedom. You are not the narrator, you are the listener, and the listener was never bound by the story. Try this for the next few minutes. Sit quietly and listen to the voice in your head. Don't fight it, don't follow it, just listen. Notice how it moves from topic to topic, how it judges, plans, remembers, imagines. Then ask, who is listening? That question has no verbal answer, because the listener is not a thought. It is the silent witness in which thoughts appear. And once you know yourself as that, as the awareness behind the voice, even the loudest inner storm loses its hold. Thoughts may still shout, but they no longer define you. They may still argue, but they no longer bind you, because the voice was never you, and there was never a speaker. For most of your life, you've assumed there's a you behind the eyes, a steady presence watching the movie of the world unfold, a subject at the center of experience, a thinker behind the thoughts, a feeler behind the feelings, a chooser behind the choices. You call this the self, and you take it for granted. Of course there's an observer. Who else could be watching? But what if the observer is just another illusion? The idea of an inner observer is so deeply embedded in our psychology that we rarely question it. It seems obvious. Thoughts are happening to someone. Emotions are felt by someone. The world is seen from someone's perspective. But when you go looking for that someone, the observer itself, it dissolves under scrutiny. The harder you search for it, the less substance you find. Let's start with perception. You see a tree. Where is the observer in that experience? Is it in the eyes? The visual cortex? A mysterious homunculus sitting in the brain's control room, watching neural images projected on a biological screen? Science has looked for such an entity, a place where all sensory inputs converge and are seen, and found nothing. There is no seat of consciousness, no inner watcher. There are only processes, light hitting retinas, neurons firing, signals integrating. The observer is not among them. The same is true of thought. You believe you're thinking, but thoughts arise and pass without a thinker. They appear out of nowhere and vanish into nowhere, leaving only the story that I produced them. Emotions too seem to belong to someone. Yet they too are spontaneous, physiological storms that rise and fall according to causes far beyond your control. Even decisions which feel most intimately ours begin before we're aware of making them. The chooser is a post hoc narration, not a cause. This leads to a startling conclusion. There is no central observer inside your head. There is only observation. Seeing, hearing, feeling, thinking, without an owner. The subject is a story added afterward. Buddhist philosophy has been saying this for over 2,500 years. The doctrine of anatta, or no self, teaches that the sense of an observer is not an intrinsic feature of consciousness, but a mental construction. It arises when the mind strings experiences together and concludes, there must be a self behind them. But this is like a necklace mistaking itself for the thread. The experiences don't need a self to happen, they just happen. Modern neuroscience supports this view. What we call the self is an emergent property of distributed brain networks, integrating sensory input, memory, and prediction. It's a simulation, a constantly updated model the brain uses to navigate the world. This model is useful, it helps you plan, remember, and interact. But it's not a thing, it's a process. And like all processes, it's empty of essence. Consider a whirlpool. It has a shape, a pattern, a location, but it's not an object. It's water in motion. If you try to grab it, you get nothing but water. The observer is the same. It appears to exist, but when you reach for it, there's only experience, no separate entity observing it. You can feel this directly. Sit quietly and watch your experience as it unfolds. Sights, sounds, sensations, thoughts. Now look for the one who's watching. Can you find it? Is it behind the eyes? Inside the head? Somewhere in the chest? You might feel a sense of I hovering behind it all. But look closer. That, too, is just another sensation. Another thought, another appearance in awareness. Even the sense of being an observer is observed. This realization is both unsettling and liberating. Unsettling because it undermines the foundation of your identity. Who are you if there's no watcher behind the watching? But liberating because it reveals that you were never confined to a center in the first place. You're not a point inside the body. You're the entire field in which perception happens. Imagine a mirror. It reflects everything but contains nothing. A bird flies by. The mirror shows it. The bird leaves. The mirror is unchanged. The mirror does not observe. It simply is. Awareness is like that. It doesn't do observing. It doesn't own experience. It's just the condition in which experience appears. And once you see this clearly, your relationship with the world shifts. The burden of me, the watcher, the controller, the responsible one, begins to fade. Life becomes lighter. Events unfold, and they are seen, but there's no someone struggling to direct them. Suffering still arises, but it is no longer personal. Joy still blooms, but it no longer belongs to anyone. Everything becomes what it always was, happenings within the vast impersonal field of awareness. This doesn't mean you become passive or indifferent. The illusion of an observer may dissolve, but decisions, actions, and intentions still happen, just as they always have. The difference is that they're no longer framed as mine. They're seen for what they are, movements in a boundless field, ripples on an ocean that belongs to no one. The 13th century Zen master Dogen put it simply, to study the self is to forget the self. To forget the self is to be enlightened by all things. When the illusion of an observer drops away, the division between self and world collapses. You're no longer a point of awareness inside a universe. You're the universe aware of itself. Try this in your next moment of strong emotion, anger, joy, sadness. Pause and ask, who is feeling this? Watch how the question unravels the emotion's grip. The I that claims ownership of the feeling evaporates, and what's left is just pure experience, raw, immediate, impersonal. And in that moment, you might glimpse the truth that sages and scientists have been circling for centuries. There is no observer behind the observing. There never was. There's only awareness, infinite, centerless, free, watching itself through the illusion of a self. Imagine you're standing on a beach, watching the waves roll in. Where does the ocean end and the sky begin? Your eyes tell you there's a line, a horizon separating water from air, but that line isn't really there. It's a creation of perception, a mental shorthand for a seamless reality. Nature itself knows no such divisions. Everything flows into everything else. Now consider your own experience. You say I see the tree or I hear the rain as if there's a clear boundary between you and what you perceive, but when you look more closely, that line begins to blur, and eventually it disappears altogether. Perception is often described as a bridge between inner and outer worlds, but the more you study it, the more the distinction collapses. Light strikes the retina, electrical signals race through neural pathways, the brain constructs a three-dimensional scene, but at no point does you step outside to verify if the picture matches reality. The entire process happens within awareness. The tree, the rain, the sky, they don't leap into the mind from the outside, they arise in it. This realization isn't mystical, it's neurological. Modern neuroscience confirms that what we perceive is not the world itself, but a constructed model. The brain doesn't deliver raw reality, it builds a representation, filling in gaps, filtering noise, and imposing patterns. What you see is a translation, not a transcription, and this translation doesn't occur out there. It unfolds entirely in here, within the space of consciousness. Yet we stubbornly cling to the idea that perception connects two separate realms, the perceiver and the perceived. We say, I see the tree, as if there's a fixed I inside and a solid tree outside. But both halves of that sentence are fictions. The I is a fluid process, and the tree is an appearance, a set of colors, shapes, and textures woven together by the mind. The experience of perception is not a relationship between two things. It's a single happening, a field of awareness taking shape as tree seeing. You can glimpse this directly through meditation or simple observation. Sit quietly and watch a single object, a candle flame, a leaf, a cloud. At first it seems like you're observing it. But if you rest your attention long enough, something shifts. The sense of eyes over here, an object over there begins to dissolve. What remains is just the raw immediacy of seeing, not you seeing a thing, but seeing happening. No boundary, no distance. This isn't just a spiritual insight. It's a scientific puzzle too. Physicists and philosophers of mind still debate whether an objective world exists independent of observation. Quantum mechanics famously suggests that observation plays a crucial role in determining physical outcomes. At the very least, the act of perception changes what is perceived. But even if the external world does exist as we think, we never encounter it directly. We meet only the version that awareness constructs. And that version is not out there. It's right here, inseparable from the perceiving itself. Consider sound. Air molecules vibrate, creating waves that travel to your ear. But the sound itself, the experience of it, doesn't exist until your brain interprets those vibrations. The same is true for color. There is no red in the outside world, just electromagnetic wavelengths. Red is a mental event, an appearance within awareness. And if even the most basic features of reality are constructed internally, where, exactly, does the outside begin? The deeper you look, the more porous the boundary becomes. The body you call mine is perceived in the same way the tree is, as a collection of sensations, sights, and thoughts. And those perceptions, too, arise within awareness. Even the feeling of being a perceiver, the subtle sense of me here observing, is itself an experience, no different in nature from the sound of the rain or the sight of the sky. What emerges from all this is a radical possibility. There is no boundary between perception and reality, because perception is reality, or at least it's the only version of reality we ever know. The world is not something you stand apart from and look at. It's a continuous unfolding within consciousness, and the you who supposedly perceives it is just another ripple in that unfolding. Mystics from every tradition have pointed to this truth. Zen teachers speak of not two, the realization that subject and object are one. Advaita Vedanta declares, the seer and the seen are the same. Even Western phenomenologists like Merleau-Ponty argued that perception is not a window onto the world, but the very fabric of existence. There is no inner and outer, only this. Try a simple experiment. Step outside and listen to the wind. Don't label it. Don't locate it as out there. Just listen. Notice how the sound doesn't come to you. It happens in you. Notice how the boundary between listener and sound evaporates when you stop imagining it. In that moment, there's no separation, only the wholeness of hearing. When this understanding deepens, the implications ripple through everything. Fear of the world lessens because there is no world apart from awareness. Loneliness softens because there is no self, apart from what's perceived. Even death begins to lose its sting because perception was never confined to a boundary that could end. It was always boundaryless, infinite, indivisible, free. In the end, the idea of perception as a bridge collapses. There was never a perceiver on one side and a world on the other. There was never an inside or an outside. There was only perception, vast, luminous, and centerless, weaving itself into the story of experience. And once you see this, the illusion of here and there, self and world fades into something simpler and truer. There is no boundary to perception. There never was. There is only the timeless unfolding of awareness, appearing as everything you've ever seen, and everything you've ever been. Where is your mind right now? You might instinctively point to your head, behind your eyes perhaps, or somewhere near the center of your skull. That's where you feel you to be after all. But pause for a moment and examine that assumption carefully. What exactly are you pointing to? The brain? Neurons? Synapses? Electrical signals? None of these are the mind. They're physical processes, measurable, observable, bound by space. The mind, on the other hand, is not something you can see, touch, or even locate. And yet, we speak about it as if it's somewhere. Thoughts are in my head. I feel it in my heart. I'm lost in my mind. But where is it really? If you look directly at your own experience, the idea of the mind having a physical location starts to dissolve. It's not inside the body. It's not outside it either. In fact, the concept of inside and outside simply doesn't apply. Let's test this directly. Where does a thought appear? When an image flashes in your imagination, where is it located? You might say inside my head, but that's just a metaphor, a story you've been taught to repeat. Look more closely. The image isn't in your skull, it's nowhere, or perhaps more accurately, it's everywhere. It arises in awareness, which has no spatial coordinates. The same goes for memories, feelings, and ideas. They don't exist in a place. They exist in a field that transcends place altogether. This field is what philosophers have called the space of mind, though even that is misleading. It's not a space like a room or a container. It's not measured in inches or miles. It has no edges, no center, no dimensions. You cannot walk toward it or away from it. And yet, everything you've ever known has appeared within it. Every sight, every sound, every sensation, every thought, all of it has unfolded here, in this placeless awareness. Modern neuroscience often tries to map the mind onto the brain. And for good reason. Mental activity does correlate with physical processes. Certain regions light up during certain thoughts. Certain chemicals influence certain emotions. But correlation is not location. The fact that the radio's circuitry changes when music plays doesn't mean the music exists inside the radio. Likewise, the fact that neural activity accompanies thought doesn't mean thought is inside the brain. The brain may be the instrument, but awareness is the music. Philosophers of mind grapple with this problem all the time. It's known as the hard problem of consciousness, the puzzle of how subjective experience arises from physical matter. But perhaps the reason the problem is so hard is that we're asking the wrong question. Maybe experience doesn't arise from the brain at all. Maybe the brain is an appearance within experience, a tool built into the dream, not the source of the dreamer. This shift in perspective changes everything. Instead of thinking of the mind as something in space, you begin to see space itself as something in the mind. After all, where does your sense of here and there exist? Only in consciousness. Where does distance stretch and collapse? Only in perception. Even the vastness of the cosmos, galaxies billions of light years away, appears nowhere but here, within the field of awareness. Mystical traditions have hinted at this for millennia. The Advaita Vedanta texts speak of Chidakasha, the space of consciousness in which the universe appears. Zen masters call it original mind, unbounded and centerless. The Sufis speak of the Qalb, the heart that contains the world. All of them point to the same truth. Consciousness is not contained within the world. The world is contained within consciousness. You can feel this directly if you experiment with perception. Close your eyes and focus on a sound. Perhaps distant traffic or the hum of a refrigerator. Does the sound happen over there, or does it simply arise here in awareness? Now, feel your heartbeat. Is it inside you, or is it simply another ripple in the same field as the sound? The moment you stop locating awareness, you realize that everything, inside, outside, near, far, is happening in one seamless locationless space. Even physics, in its strangest corners, seems to hint at this. Space and time, according to general relativity, are not fixed containers but dynamic properties of the universe. Quantum mechanics suggests that reality may not exist in a definite state until observed. If space and time themselves are emergent, if they arise within a deeper reality, then perhaps that deeper reality is not spatial at all. Perhaps it's consciousness. And when that truth sinks in, something profound shifts in how you experience life. The world stops being a series of objects out there. The body stops being a vessel in here. Everything, the stars, the thoughts, the heartbeat, the horizon, is happening in the same infinite field, a field that cannot be measured, divided, or destroyed. In this view, Even death loses its meaning. What could it mean for awareness to leave the body when it was never in the body to begin with? What could it mean for the mind to go somewhere when it was never somewhere? The end of the body is not the end of awareness. It's just the end of one particular appearance within it. Try to live from this perspective for a day. Instead of saying, "I'm walking through the world," notice that the world is unfolding within you. Instead of saying, "I'm thinking," notice that thoughts are blooming like flowers in a boundless field. Instead of saying, "I am here," realize that here itself is happening inside the vastness of awareness. The mind is not in a location. It never was. It is the groundless ground, the centerless center, the space in which all locations appear. And once you see that clearly, the search for where you are ends, because you were never anywhere. Everything was always in you. If you ask a neuroscientist where your mind lives, they'll point to a 3-pound lump of tissue inside your skull. They'll describe billions of neurons firing electrical signals, intricate networks processing information, and chemical messengers shaping thoughts, emotions, and decisions. They'll say, confidently, this is where consciousness happens. And yet, for all our scientific sophistication, we still don't know how. We can map neural activity, trace cognitive pathways, even predict behavior, but we cannot explain how cold matter gives rise to the warmth of experience. We cannot explain how electrochemical signals become the taste of chocolate, the ache of grief, or the sound of rain. This mystery, known as the hard problem of consciousness, exposes a profound gap in our understanding, and perhaps the gap exists because we've been looking in the wrong direction. Maybe the brain isn't the source of consciousness at all. Maybe it's an appearance within it. Think of a radio. It doesn't create the music you hear. It tunes into it. The signal exists independently of the device. But without the device, you can't hear the broadcast. The brain may function the same way. It doesn't generate consciousness. It modulates, filters, and expresses it. Damage the radio, and the signal sounds distorted. Damage the brain, and awareness expresses itself differently. But in neither case does the device create the signal. Evidence for this perspective is hiding in plain sight. Every experience of the brain, whether seen on a scan, studied under a microscope, or imagined in your head, occurs within awareness. You have never encountered a brain outside of consciousness. The image of a brain, the concept of it, the very word, all of it arises as phenomena in the mind. It's like a painting trying to explain the painter. Moreover, the brain is constantly changing. Neurons fire and die. Synapses strengthen and weaken. New pathways form. Yet amid this endless flux, the sense of being aware remains constant. If consciousness were simply a byproduct of brain matter, it should fluctuate as the matter does. Instead, awareness is the still backdrop against which those changes unfold. And then there's the problem of timing. Neuroscientists know that neural activity associated with a decision begins before you're consciously aware of making that decision. This suggests that consciousness is not a causal force generated by the brain. It's a witness to processes already in motion. It's the light illuminating the stage, not the actors moving upon it. Mystics and philosophers have been pointing to this for centuries. Schopenhauer described the brain as the condition of the phenomenon of consciousness, not its cause. Aldous Huxley called it a reducing valve that filters a wider reality into manageable fragments. In Advaita Vedanta, the brain is just another object in awareness, no more fundamental than a tree, a sound, or a thought. If this is true, then our deepest assumption, that the brain produces the mind, may be backwards. Consciousness doesn't emerge from the brain emerges in consciousness. It's part of the story, not the storyteller. And once you see that, the relationship between mind and matter flips completely. Consider dreams again. In them you might see and feel a body, even a brain. You might watch a surgeon operate on it, or imagine thoughts firing within it. All of this seems to happen inside the brain, until you wake and realize that the brain itself was part of the dream. Its apparent causal power was an illusion. Could waking life be the same? Even mainstream science is starting to entertain this possibility. Quantum physicists debate whether consciousness plays a role in collapsing wave functions, in other words, whether the universe requires awareness to take shape. Panpsychists argue that consciousness is a fundamental feature of reality, not a product of complex systems. Idealists go further, proposing that matter itself is an appearance within a universal mind. These are still controversial ideas, but they're gaining traction precisely because the brain-centric model has failed to solve the riddle. What happens if you accept this inversion? The implications are profound. For one, death changes its meaning. If consciousness depends on the brain, then the death of the brain means the end of consciousness. But if the brain is just an appearance within consciousness, then the end of the brain is no more catastrophic than the end of a dream character. Consciousness, the field in which the brain appears, remains untouched. It also reshapes how we think about identity. If consciousness is primary and the brain secondary, then you are not a fragile neural pattern doomed to decay. You are the vast awareness in which all patterns rise and fall. The brain's birth and death are events, but they do not touch the space they occur in. Even everyday life starts to look different. The brain stops being the master and becomes a tool. Emotions, thoughts, and perceptions are not commands issued by a dictator in your skull. They are waves rising and dissolving in the ocean of awareness. And that ocean has no edges, no center, no beginning or end. Try this. Close your eyes and imagine your brain. Where is it? What shape does it have? What color? Notice that the brain you're imagining is just another appearance in the mind, a concept, a mental picture, a thought. It's not in your head, it's in awareness, like everything else. In the end, the belief that the brain produces consciousness may be the most persistent illusion of all, the final barrier between us and the truth. It's a useful story for science, but a story nonetheless. And when the story collapses, something deeper is revealed. Consciousness is not trapped inside a lump of flesh. The lump of flesh is trapped inside consciousness. And consciousness cannot be trapped at all. Close your eyes and place your hand on a table. Feel the cool surface press against your skin. Now ask yourself, who is feeling that sensation? It's such a basic, unquestioned part of life that we rarely stop to investigate it. Touch seems obvious. A body meets an object, and sensation occurs. But if you look more deeply into the mechanics of experience, that simplicity dissolves into something far stranger. Touch begins with contact, or so we think. Skin receptors fire, nerves send signals, the brain interprets them as pressure or texture. But none of this, not the skin, not the nerves, not the brain, actually feels anything. They are physical processes, electrical discharges, chemical reactions, patterns of activity. They do not experience. The sensation of touch, the soft, vivid, intimate feeling of it, occurs somewhere else, and that somewhere isn't a place at all. This is one of the most overlooked truths of consciousness. No one has ever found the experiencer. We know that sensations happen, but where and to whom? Look for the feeler of the touch, and you will not find it in the hand, the brain, or the body. You won't find it anywhere. The feeling appears, but the one who feels is missing. Try this experiment right now. Touch your arm with your fingertips. Notice how the sensation appears immediately, a vivid spark of presence. Now, search for the boundary between finger and arm. Where does one end and the other begin? The closer you look, the harder it becomes to find. The sensation is not in the finger or in the arm. It's not even between them. It's happening in awareness, a seamless field in which distinctions between self and world, subject and object, melt away. This is not just philosophical speculation. Neuroscience shows that the body's sensory map is fluid and constantly changing. The famous rubber hand illusion demonstrates how easily the sense of ownership over a limb can shift. When a fake hand is stroked in synchrony with a hidden real one, people begin to feel the fake hand as their own. Their nervous system hasn't changed. Their experience has. The location of touch is not fixed in the body. It is assigned, or more accurately, constructed by the mind. The phenomenon goes deeper. Phantom limb sensations, in which amputees feel touch, pain, or movement in a limb that no longer exists, reveal that touch is not tied to physical flesh. It's a projection, a painting on the canvas of consciousness. The body is a map, but the map is not the territory. The sensations that seem anchored to skin and bone are not in them at all. They appear where awareness draws them. Even the distinction between touching and being touched begins to blur under scrutiny. When you press your hands together, which one is touching and which one is touched? The question doesn't make sense. They're both doing both, simultaneously. This hints at a deeper truth. Subject and object are not two. They are two aspects of the same event, two faces of a single process, touching touch. The same paradox appears in all sensory experience. You hear a sound, but who is hearing? You see a color, but where is the seer? You feel an emotion, but who is feeling it? In each case, we assume a subject behind the experience, a me to whom it happens. But when we go looking for that subject, it evaporates. There is experience, but no experiencer. Sensation, but no feeler. Thought, but no thinker. This is what the 8th century Buddhist philosopher Shantideva meant when he wrote, "There is no one who suffers, only suffering." It's what Zen masters point to when they ask students, "Who is hearing this sound?" The question is not meant to be answered. It's meant to collapse the illusion of a separate self experiencing the world. The answer, if there is one, is that there is no one. There is only experience happening. Spontaneous, unowned, free. Consider how radically this shifts your relationship to the body. You think of the body as mine because you feel sensations in it. But if sensations are not in the body, if they're simply appearances in awareness, then the body's role changes. It's no longer the container of experience. It's one of the experiences contained. The body, like the table you touched, is part of the show, not the stage. This understanding can transform how you relate to pain and pleasure alike. If there is no fixed feeler, then pain is not happening to you. It is simply happening. Pleasure is not yours. It is a passing wave in a boundless ocean. That doesn't mean you become indifferent. It means you stop clinging to experiences as personal. They are part of the dance of awareness, not trophies or punishments meted out to a separate self. Try this the next time you feel a sensation, instead of saying, "I am cold," or "my hand hurts." Strip away the possessive language. Say simply, "Coldness is being experienced. Pain is present." Notice how the sense of ownership loosens. Notice how the boundary between self and sensation softens. What you are is not the experiencer. You are the space in which experience happens. And if that's true for something as intimate as touch, it's true for everything. The world isn't something that happens to you. It's something that happens in you, in the infinite, centerless awareness that you are. The skin, the nerve, the sensation, the concept of I, all of it arises and dissolves in that space. So who is being touched? No one. The question is a trick of language, a habit of thought. There is only touching, spontaneous, vivid, fleeting, like a ripple on water, leaving no trace of a toucher behind. Stand before a mirror and look at your reflection. There it is, a familiar shape you've carried for years. Skin stretched over muscle and bone, a face that the world recognizes as you. And yet, if you pause long enough to question it, a deeper and more unsettling truth emerges. This body, the one you've loved and hated, fed and clothed, feared losing, and fought to protect, may never have been you at all. In fact, it may never have existed in the way you think it does. To understand why, we need to peel back a few layers. First, ask yourself, how do you know you have a body? Through sensation, pressure, warmth, movement, weight, through sight, a hand extending, a leg moving, through thought, memories, concepts, and language, describing what a body is. But all of these are experiences. They arise and dissolve within awareness. None of them exist independently of it. If you close your eyes and lose sensation, in deep sleep, anesthesia, or meditation, where does the body go? It vanishes. If you stop thinking about it, stop naming it, stop referencing it, where is it then? Nowhere. What you call body is a continuous stream of appearances, feelings, perceptions, ideas, stitched together into a story. Science too tells us that the body is far less stable than we believe. The skin you see is constantly shedding. The cells inside you are replaced over and over. The atoms composing you today were once part of stars, soil, and other organisms, and in time they will become something else again. Over the span of a few years, virtually every molecule in your body is replaced. What then is this thing you call me? It's a river pretending to be a rock. Even more shocking is the role your mind plays in constructing the body you believe you inhabit. Neuroscientists know that your sense of physical self is an active hallucination, a model your brain builds from sensory input. It stitches together signals from vision, touch, proprioception, and balance into a seamless story. I am here. This is my body. But this story is so malleable that it can be rewritten in seconds. In the rubber hand illusion, for example, stroking a fake hand in sync with your hidden real one convinces your mind that the fake is part of your body. In virtual reality, people can inhabit avatars that look nothing like them and still feel embodied. In dreams you might have wings or multiple limbs, and it feels entirely natural. The body is not a fixed object. It's an ongoing act of imagination. Mystics have been pointing to this truth for centuries. The Buddha described the body as a collection of impermanent elements: form, sensation, perception, mental formations, and consciousness, none of which can be called a self. Advaita philosophers speak of the body as a costume awareness wears for a while. Sufi mystics refer to it as a borrowed cloak. Even modern physics supports the idea matter itself is mostly empty space, a dance of energy and probability. The body is not a solid thing. It's a pattern, fleeting, insubstantial, and dependent on everything else. And it's not just the sense of ownership that's illusory. The boundaries of the body are too. Where do you end and the world begin? Is the air in your lungs part of you? Is the food in your stomach? What about the bacteria in your gut, which outnumber your own cells? The line between self and environment is blurry at best, non-existent at worst. The body is not a sealed container, but a dynamic process, inseparable from the world around it. But if the body is imagined, does that mean it's not real? Not exactly. It's real in the same way a dream character is real, as an experience. When you dream you're flying, the wings feel real, the air feels real, the entire scene feels real, until you wake up and realize it was all happening within awareness. This is how the body functions. It's a vivid, persistent appearance within consciousness, but not something consciousness is. Try this. Sit quietly and feel your body from the inside. Notice the sensations: tingling, warmth, heaviness, lightness. Now ask, where are they happening? Are they in a body, or are they simply appearing in awareness? Notice how even the sense of inside and outside is just another idea, another imagined line drawn on the boundless canvas of consciousness. The body is not a thing. It's a story awareness tells itself about itself. This realization can be unsettling. It cuts at the very root of identity, but it's also profoundly liberating, because if the body is not who you are, then you are not confined by it. You are not defined by its shape, its age, its abilities, or its eventual decay. The body can change, and you remain. It can weaken, and you remain. It can die, and still, you remain. What you truly are is not the form appearing within awareness, but the awareness in which form appears. And if the body is a story, then death is just the end of a chapter, not the end of the book. The character disappears, but the page remains. The costume falls away, but the actor is unchanged. The waves crash and vanish, but the ocean, the infinite, formless awareness rolls on. This is the ultimate paradox. You've spent your life believing that consciousness lives inside a body, but it's the other way around. The body has always lived inside consciousness, a fleeting image in an endless sky, and when that image dissolves, when the story ends and the mirror reflects nothing, consciousness will still be here, silently watching, eternally aware. Because the body was never you. It was never the home of your mind. It was never the container of your being. It was a dream you once believed in, a beautiful, temporary fiction, imagined by something infinite, something that has no shape, no center, no edges, and no end.